But then, Luo royal family was exterminated and the imperial city fell into the hands of Soul-Snatching Palace. The lair of Soul-Snatching Palace was set up there as well in order to take control of the entire Holy Kingdom of Sky Luo. Although I have no idea what the goal of Holocaust sect was, regardless, I'll just exterminate them straight away. Jian Wushuang overlooked the huge floating land as his eyes glowed with a chilly gleam. Duan Lingfeng, you go first, Jian Wushuang said. No problem. Duan Lingfeng didn't hesitate as he moved towards the huge floating land. Rumble. There was an extremely fierce real god aura that swept out. The real god aura was almost unbelievable among real gods. Who is it? Stop! Someone shouted, and there were suddenly a few figures that burst out. Hearing the shouts, Duan Lingfeng didn't stop his footsteps. Courting death! Someone shouted again. There were a bunch of figures that burst out from soul-snatching soul and let out fierce auras. There were as many as 6 real gods. In the void afar, Jian Wushuang and the few others stood there and watched quietly. Mr. Will we just watch as Mr. Duan barge into Soul-Snatching Palace alone? The purple-haired youth, Luo Tianhong, creased his eyebrows. He already knew what Jian Wushuang's plan was. He was there to exterminate Soul-Snatching Palace. However, Soul-Snatching Palace was a dangerous spot. Mr. Duan had barged in alone. Wouldn't it be extremely dangerous? Don't worry, just watch. Jian Wushuang looked calm. On the floating land, there was an explosion of war. Duan Lingfeng, who was in a white robe, held his saber in one hand and he looked as though he had transformed into a demon. With a billowing massacre aura, the boundless massacre doctrine formed a massacre realm that covered the entire universe. In terms of comprehension of massacre doctrine, Dean Lingfeng had obviously reached the standard of the 7th level of Doctrine Palace. It was already the standard of an almighty. His saber skill was even scarier. No matter how great the number of real god and universe god were there from Soul-Snatching Palace, they were just clay chickens and pottery dogs, completely useless. He had massacred and left behind a sea of blood. There was no one who could withstand his saber lights that he performed with ease. With his power alone, he had barged into the lair of Soul-Snatching Palace and massacred rampantly. Luo Tianhong was dumbfounded at the sight. He was shocked at the power displayed by Duan Lingfeng. He's so powerful. Mr. Duan is so powerful. They are real gods, but one casual slash of his saber could kill 3 of them. The higher-ups from Soul-Snatching Palace teamed up and formed a formation to block, but he broke them apart with one slash. He is that powerful? It stirred a great commotion in Luo Tianhong's heart. He had always stayed in Holy Kingdom of Sky Luo. He had only wandered in a few other holy kingdoms nearby. Although he had some experience, he wasn't as knowledgeable and experienced. In his eyes, real gods were already high above, especially those who were eternal real gods and chaotic real gods. Especially chaotic real gods. In a normal situation, a chaotic real god could take over a holy kingdom and become a ruler easily. For instance, the strongest person in Luo royal family, monarch of Sky Luo, was only a chaotic real god. He was also the strongest person Luo Tianhong had ever seen. But then, Duan Lingfeng's rampant massacre and the power he displayed had exceeded Luo Tianhong's imagination. Huh? Those black-robed masked men appeared. Luo Tianhong's heart clenched. He saw that there were dozens of black-robed figures with savage masks who had appeared on the battlefield. Those black-robed masked men were all powerful. The weakest of them was a top eternal real god. Most of them were chaotic real gods. The dozens of them teamed up to hem Duan Lingfeng in. Mr. Duan is in danger. Luo Tianhong was worried. But in the end, Virum. A cold saber light swept and more than half of the dozens of black-robed masked men were wiped out by the merciless blade light. Then, Duan Lingfeng casually swung his saber at the remaining few. In the blink of an eye, the dozens of black-robed masked men were wiped out. This is too scary. Luo Tianhong stared. Jian Wushuang next to him wasn't surprised at such an outcome. Luo Tianhong, what do you think of my best friend's power? Jian Wushuang suddenly asked. Mr. Duan is the strongest person I have ever seen in saber skill and comprehension of massacre doctrine. Luo Tianhong said in a serious tone. Of course, he is widely acknowledged as the number one real god in eternal chaotic world. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, Number one real god in eternal world? Luo Tianhong stunned. Although he had never been to 10 cultivation sanctuaries, he knew just how impressive it was to be a number one real god in eternal world. Of course, they had said that Duan Lingfeng was the number one real god in eternal world without taking Jian Wushuang into consideration. Because in eternal chaotic world, there was no one who treated Jian Wushuang as a real god anymore. Luo Tianhong, you are also good at saber skills and you are also comprehending massacre doctrine. Don't you want to be his disciple? Jian Wushuang casually asked. Be formally apprenticed to Mr. Duan? Luo Tianhong was stunned and his eyes immediately shimmered. I, of course, want to be formally apprenticed to him. I wonder if Mr. Duan is willing to take me as his disciple. You can give it a try. Jian Wushuang smiled. Jian Wushuang looked as though he was casually speaking, but Luo Tianhong took his advice seriously. He looked at Duan Lingfeng, who was massacring rampantly, and he made up his mind. Just then, Hong! There was a fierce divine might that suddenly soared. The divine might was high and above, and it instantly engulfed the universe. On the floating land, the cultivators were shivering in fear under such divine might. Some even knelt down straight away. This is... Luo Tianhong looked terrified. There was a malicious smile that spread across Jian Wushuang's face. The cold-looking elder in a black robe was the one who gave out the divine might. When Jian Wushuang saw the cold-looking elder, his gaze was fixed. Hee, someone familiar. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He wondered if it was a coincidence. He had met the cold-looking elder once. It was many years ago, back when Jian Wushuang was just a stage 2 ultimate real god. It was too difficult for him to accumulate ultimate divine power in his body. Hence, he went to Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning that was controlled by Sir God Luoshaz under the lead of Sir God Mad Dog. When Jian Wushuang was taking in the power of Absolute Beginning in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, the experts from Holocaust sect happened to barge in. Then there were 4 Sir Gods who came. The cold-looking elder was one of them. In the end, Jian Wushuang, Sir God Mad Dog and Sir God Luosha had teamed up to fight off the other 4 Sir Gods. They had even killed His Highness Mu Hong. Now he had crossed paths with the cold-looking elder again. On the battlefield, Duan Lingfeng was already fighting with the cold-looking elder. Although the cold-looking elder was a Sir God, Duan Lingfeng was number 1 on Real God ranking list. He was powerful enough to fight with him. He would definitely not be defeated in a short period of time. Mr. You said that Mr. Duan is the number 1 real god in eternal world. The person that is fighting with him now seems to be slightly stronger than him. Could he be the legendary Almighty? Luo Tianhong couldn't help but ask. Yes, an Almighty, Jian Wushuang answered. He really is, Luo Tianhong gasped. To cultivators who stayed in their holy kingdoms all year round, an Almighty was definitely like a figure from the legend. Mr. Duan, who is only a real god, can fight with a legendary Almighty like that. He lives up to his reputation as the number 1 real god in eternal world, Luo Tianhong complimented. Jian Wushuang, let's fight. Otherwise, your best friend might not be able to endure for long. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. King of Venomous Worms immediately moved and returned to Jian Wushuang's body. Qiu Yu, stay on the spaceship with this young man, Jian Wushuang exhorted. Yes, Qiu Yu nodded. Then Jian Wushuang and Jianyi flew to the huge floating land. Just as they landed on the land, rumble. A terrifying divine might flowed out of Jian Wushuang's body. The power of the divine might was stronger by tens of folds than the full divine might shown by the cold-looking elder. The divine might was like a prison as it engulfed the entire land. The cultivators on the land, including the men from Soul-Snatching Palace, were terrified. With such terrifying divine might, it finally startled the expert who was hidden in the deepest place of the land. Then, there were fierce auras that burst out from the depth of the land, also known as the old lair of Soul-Snatching Palace. A few figures appeared one after another. They gathered with the cold-looking elder. There was a total of 7 figures floating in the air, just like 7 gods. So many of them? Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. He knew that there were experts from Holocaust sect within Soul-Snatching Palace, and there might even be almighties. However, he had never expected that in Soul-Snatching Palace itself, they hit a total of 7 almighties. Most importantly, among the 7 almighties, there were not only Sir Gods. There were only 4 Sir Gods, and the other 3 were Emperor Gods. 3 Emperor Gods and 4 Sir Gods, that was the powerful team formation in front of Jian Wushuang. Among the 3 Emperor Gods, the one leading was a golden-robed man with a crimson monstrous mask. The golden-robed masked man stood there and pressed down on Jian Wushuang with pressure. Without a doubt, the golden-robed masked man was a true peak Emperor God. Interesting. Such a minor force like Soul-Snatching Palace is impressive enough to contain 7 gods. There's even a peak Emperor Gods. Jian Wushuang smiled. His smile was cold like a blade. The 7 almighties stared at Jian Wushuang. The pair of eerie golden eyes that were revealed by the golden-robed masked men were looking at Jian Wushuang as he let out boundless resentment. You are Jian Wushuang. The golden-robed man sounded cold, and the air froze in an instant. You know me? It seems that I am quite famous in Holocaust sect. Jian Wushuang rubbed his nose. I am the 7th Palace Master of Holocaust sect. The golden-robed masked man stared at Jian Wushuang as murderous intention swept out. Jian Wushuang, I finally found you. Give me my son back. Jian Wushuang was stunned. Your son? Could it be His Highness Mu Hong? Although Jian Wushuang had crossed paths with Holocaust sect multiple times, the only expert from Holocaust sect that died had at his hand was His Highness Mu Hong. Plus, Jian Wushuang had always thought that His Highness Mu Hong had a background. From what it seemed, he should be his father, the golden-robed masked man before him. With a peak Emperor God as his father, no wonder His Highness Mu Hong would be so arrogant. Jian Wushuang sneered. Save your nonsense. I will take revenge on my son's behalf today. Die! The golden-robed masked man bellowed, and his peak Emperor God aura instantly locked onto Jian Wushuang as his target. His body immediately increased tremendously in size to 10 zhang tall. His golden robe turned into boundless golden clouds. Rumble. A huge golden mountain appeared in the sky above. The golden mountain continuously magnified and pressed down on everything in the universe. That very moment it pressed down on Jian Wushuang. Looking at the golden mountain above him, Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock. As the golden mountain pressed on him, he could clearly feel a suppressing power. If not mistaken, the golden mountain should be a suppressing treasure that was rare. Plus, the power had reached the level of chaotic divine treasure. Chaotic divine treasure is rare to begin with. A suppressing chaotic divine treasure is even harder to come by, Jian Wushuang muttered. Even he felt danger approaching when he was under the golden mountain. My 7 stars are all broken. My power of ancient tribe bloodline has just recovered by a slight bit, and my power isn't at its peak. I am at a disadvantage when I am fighting with the 7th Palace Master, who has suppressing chaotic divine treasure. Jian Wushuang thought and immediately looked at Jian Yi next to him. Take care of this person. Kill him, Jian Wushuang commanded. Yes. Jian Yi nodded politely, and there was immediately a crimson cloud churning on his body. There was crimson fog that gathered in the sky and instantly formed a crimson ocean to engulf the entire huge golden mountain. The golden mountain displayed its power that was fierce. However, when it hit the crimson ocean, it as though it had hit a ball of cotton. What? The golden masked man. Also the 7th Palace Master couldn't help but steal a glance at Jian Yi. However, Jian Yi didn't stop, and his figure grew illusionary and charged towards the 7th Palace Master. Humph! The 7th Palace Master humphed coldly. When Jian Yi got closer, he took out a huge seal with a flip of his wrist. On the huge seal, there was a golden dragon that carried a powerful aura. It was an extremely unique chaotic divine treasure. As the 7th Palace Master patted the seal let out an intense golden glow. The golden dragon on the seal instantly became alive. Roar! A terrifying dragon roar reverberated in the universe. The golden dragon suddenly became tens of thousands of zhang in length. It contained boundless imposing power as it charged at Jian Yi. The golden dragon gave Jian Wushuang a feeling that it could match evenly with an ordinary peak emperor god. This seventh palace master has so many treasures on hand? Jian Wushuang was shocked. From the golden mountain to the golden dragon seal, the seventh palace master took out 2 golden spears. The 2 golden spears carried extraordinary aura as well. They were also chaotic divine treasure. He really had a lot of treasure with him. Treasures are great, but in terms of his power, he is only an emperor god after all. He would at most be similar to Palace Wu Luo from Abysmal Palace. Even with the assistance of the treasure, he definitely wasn't Jian Yi's match. Jian Wushuang sneered when he looked at the other 6 almighties nearby. Jian Yi could take care of the 7th palace master, but these other 6, die! There was a flash of murderous intention in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Then, 4 Hong Yung golden swords soared up at the same time. They instantly became 4 resplendent golden lights. The 4 golden lights were unbelievably fast as they flew at the 6 almighties. Die! Kill him! The 6 almighties were soaring with murderous intention. There was no fear in them. They immediately let their power into full play and fought with Jian Wushuang. Although the 6 of them had teamed up, their powers were vastly different from Jian Wushuang's. Jian Wushuang only drove the 4 Hong Jun golden swords to attack rampantly, and he killed 4 Sir gods at lightning speed. As for the remaining 2 emperor gods who had ordinary fighting powers, they didn't last long either before they were killed by Jian Wushuang. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang's body floated in the void and the 4 Hong Jun golden sword returned to his sides as he looked down at the 6 dead bodies on the ground. However, he was shocked. One should know that the 6 almighties were obviously not his match. They would totally be suppressed if they fought with him. However, the 6 almighties had no intention to retreat even though they knew so. There was only madness that wanted to kill him. Almighties, every single one of that went through so much. They should look highly upon their lives. However, the 6 of them seemed to have put their lives aside. What is going on? Jian Wushuang muttered. Not only the 6 almighties, but Jian Wushuang also noticed that the 7th palace master who was fighting with Jian Yi was the same. He had played all his trump cards and he was still suppressed by Jian Yi. Theoretically, at such a crucial moment he should run for his life. But in actual fact, he had no intention to flee. Just then, humph! The 7th palace master suddenly humphed coldly and the aura on his body suddenly increased at a terrifying speed. This is soul ignition. Jian Wushuang's face suddenly changed. He wasn't unfamiliar with soul ignition. Back when he had invited Colored Glaze Emperor God and Emperor God Juyin to Deluge Fortress, when they had besieged Fortress Master Hong Tian, he had been cornered into a desperate situation and he performed soul ignition and swore to counterattack. But in the end, Jian Wushuang and his troops had killed him. Once one soul was ignited, his overall power would increase tremendously in a short period of time. However, the price to pay was definite death. Only an expert who was above peak Emperor God could pull off that move. If one wasn't at a final desperate situation, no one would do so. Then, although the 7th palace master was cornered by Jian Yi, he would stand no chance to flee with all the treasures and trump cards that he had. But he soul ignited to counterattack without hesitation? He's mad! Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Jian Wushuang, I want you dead. The mask on the 7th palace master shattered and revealed an old, ugly face. The face was then distorted and ferocious looking. Because of soul ignition, the power that he let out had reached a brand new level. In collaboration with the treasures he had, his fighting power was extraordinary. Jian Yi, block him! Jian Wushuang roared. Jian Yi naturally wouldn't hesitate to go forward and fight a fierce battle. Plus, he put his full power on display. Bang! 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 There was continuous explosions that resounded in the universe. The sky was filled with divine power and the floating land quivered madly. Luckily, there were countless cultivators on the land that fled far away. Otherwise, the battle could destroy everything on land. Hong! There was another explosion and the floating land shattered into pieces entirely. Jian Wushuang, Jian Wushuang. An angry roar reverberated in the universe. The hysterical roar brought about boundless madness and unwillingness. This man? Jian Wushuang fixed his gaze at the seventh palace master solemnly as his face grew distressed. He felt glad that he had brought Jian Yi with him. The seventh palace master couldn't break through Jian Yi's guard and come before him even if he soul ignited. But if he was alone, his power of 7-star had yet to recover. There were many trump cards that he had yet to perform. If he were to fight against the seventh palace master at such a crucial moment, he might really be in danger. Time flew past. After a while, the seventh palace master's consciousness started fleeing along with his ignited soul. They started to disperse. After a while, the seventh palace master's aura finally vanished into thin air and he died. Is he dead? Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief. Oh yeah, his treasure. Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed. The seventh palace master had many treasures. He immediately wanted to go forward. Suddenly, just as he approached the seventh palace master's dead body, the surrounding dark void suddenly shattered. Then, a ghostly figure leaped out from the broken void. Then, she waved and took the seventh palace master's dead body, along with his Qian Kuan ring and his treasures. Courting death. Jian Wushuang grew distressed and the 4-hong Jun golden sword burst out. Jian Yi, who was near to the seventh palace master's dead body, plunged forward as well. The ghostly figure smirked coldly and dodged. Her body moved to somewhere far away. The 4-hong Jun golden swords and Jian Yi's attack missed. Sword Emperor, don't be angry. There was a soft voice. The person steadied herself and it was an old lady in black robe. Although she was only a Sir God, she gave Jian Wushuang a strange feeling. Forget about the others. The old lady in the black robe had been hiding in the surrounding dark void for so long, but both Jian Wushuang and Jian Yi didn't notice her at all. She shouldn't be belittled by that factor alone. Who are you? Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold as he looked at the old lady in the black robe. It doesn't matter who I am. Sword Emperor, you only need to know that I come at my master's command. My master's surname is Lung. Sword Emperor should know her. The old lady in black robe smiled as she spoke. Jian Wushuang's body stiffened at her speech. Surname Lung? Lord Lung. Jian Wushuang's gaze was turned cold. Lord Lung? No, my master is no longer the Lord but Holocaust Sect Master. Sect Master. Jian Wushuang's face grew in distress. He heard from Emperor Bai earlier that Holocaust Sect had gone through a drastic change. Someone united them using thunderous measures. However, he had never expected the one who united Holocaust Sect would be Lung Wuxia. Speaking of which, Holocaust Sect has to thank Sword Emperor for helping Holocaust Sect to take care of these betrayers. Otherwise, Holocaust Sect has to use time and effort to deal with them. The old lady in black robe smiled. Jian Wushuang glanced at the few Almighty's dead bodies around him and he understood then. No wonder the experts from Holocaust Sect had decided to maintain high profile. They didn't even flee when they saw him coming but opted to fight a life-and-death battle. From what it seemed, these people already betrayed Holocaust Sect and they were eyed by Lung Wuxia. If he wasn't not mistaken, there should have been marks on their bodies long ago. They had never fled. In other words, they were actually dead for sure. They were only waiting for Holocaust Sect to kill them. It was just that Holocaust Sect had yet to take action, but they had met Jian Wushuang. Sword Emperor, for what happened today, I thank you on behalf of my master. Farewell. The old lady in black robe smiled maliciously as her figure suddenly became blurry. Want to leave? Jian Wushuang's gaze turned cold, and there was a purple bead in his hand. Under Jian Wushuang's manipulation of his will, vroom! Boundless purple light covered the light. In an instant, it formed a formation that covered a range of few millions miles. One realm pearl became formation at one's will. You can't run away. Jian Wushuang's voice resounded in the air. Hee, I knew Sword Emperor has a treasure that turned into formation at your will. As I dare to take away the treasures in front of you, I naturally am well prepared. The old lady in the black robe smiled faintly. She flipped her hand and took out a token. The token broke and instantly shattered the void. There was a space tunnel that appeared from nowhere. What? Jian Wushuang was surprised. The formation that one realm pearl formed covered the entire spacetime. But the token that he had taken out could ignore the spacetime and form a space tunnel that connected to the outside world in such situation. Humph! Jian Wushuang let out a cold humph and the divine power in his body flowed. At the same time, there was also minor power of ancient tribe bloodline that King of Venomous Worms barely recovered. Although his power of ancient tribe bloodline had only recovered by a slight bit, it was barely enough. Moon-picking skill. There was soaring divine power. Rumble. The space-time that the old lady in the black robe was in immediately faced unprecedented pressure. The space-time tunnel that appeared in the air started to distort from the pressure. Shit! The old lady in the black robe's face grew grave. Just then, from the space-time tunnel that was distorted, Quang, there was a lily-white hand that extended. The lily-white hand was clean without any flaw. At the same time, there was a cold aura that spread out from the other side of space-time tunnel that Jian Wushuang could never forget in his lifetime. Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed when he sensed the aura. Lang Ruxue. Jian Wushuang glared at the space-time tunnel. The lily-white hand that extended from the space-time tunnel only moved casually, and the space-time that had been pressured earlier instantly settled down and the space-time tunnel resumed normal. The old lady in the black robe seized the chance to enter the space-time tunnel and disappeared. The space-time tunnel then started to close gradually. Right before the space-time tunnel disappeared, there was suddenly a voice. Hee Jian Wushuang, I never expected you to have the chance to reach where you are now. It's a pity that you are still far from saving her. Very far. Ha. There was a taint of disdain in her voice and it reverberated in Jian Wushuang's ears. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and watched the space-time tunnel disappear. His body quivered faintly. He felt extremely solemn from the bottom of his heart. Very far, what she said repeatedly rang in his head. With my power now, is it still not enough? Jian Wushuang clenched his teeth. Ever since he had left Green Fire World until then, it had been tens of thousands of years. He had been trying his best to increase his power and find ways to make himself stronger. No matter what kind of danger he faced, he would fight for a string of hope with his all. He did all that so that he could find Leng Ruxue one day and save her wife Leng Rushuang. After so many years, he had though his improvement speed was shocking enough. Especially then, when he already stood on the peak of eternal chaotic world. Even the great emperors held scruples with him. However, he realized then that he was still not powerful enough. He was far from enough. Holocaust Sect is a hidden dark force that could match evenly with Sanctuary Alliance. Its overall power might not win over Sanctuary Alliance, but they shouldn't be too far apart. But she could unite Holocaust Sect and become Holocaust Sect Master with thunderous measure. Such power, Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn. Besides, the lily-white hand that extended from the space-time tunnel earlier must have been Lang Rushue's. However, from the lily-white hand alone, although Jian Wushuang couldn't determine her true power, he was determined that Leng Ruxue must have reached the stage on par with Great Emperor. How could she improve so quickly? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. Although a primordial great sinner has advantage in cultivation, she shouldn't have reached the level of Great Emperor in only tens of thousands of years. From what I see, she definitely received an impressive opportunity. King of Venomous Worms' voice rang in Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang nodded in silence. He obviously thought it was the only explanation as well. Jian Wushuang, don't be in a hurry. She received a great opportunity and became a great emperor in a short time. You are not too shabby yourself. Plus, you already received the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill. You only need some time until you leap to the 7th step. By then, you should be able to fight with her. You are definitely not far from possessing power enough to suppress her. King of Venomous Worms reassured. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily, and he was confident too. Swoosh! Swoosh! There were 2 figures that appeared next to Jian Wushuang. Master! Jian Yi looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, are you okay? Duan Lingfeng asked. I'm okay. Jian Wushuang shook his head. The Almighties from Holocaust sect are wiped out. The remaining are just some real gods and some people from Soul-Snatching Palace. Kill them all. Jian Wushuang was boiling with murderous intention. He waved and 4 bronze-armored Dao soldiers appeared simultaneously. In addition to Duan Lingfeng, Jian Yi, and himself, they massacred the experts from Soul-Snatching Palace mercilessly. Without Almighties, the remaining experts from Holocaust sect and Soul-Snatching Palace naturally had no space to struggle when they were fighting against Jian Wushuang and his troop. In a short while, the entire Soul-Snatching Palace was exterminated. Only some extremely weak disciples managed to escape. In the vast void. Your name is Luo Tianhong, right? Duan Lingfeng's gaze was cold as he stared at the purple-haired young man in front of him. Yes. Luo Tianhong nodded solemnly as his eyes filled with enthusiasm. I arranged an opponent for you. If you can defeat him, I will take you in as a registered disciple. However, if you can't kill your opponent, you can only blame yourself. I will not help you, Duan Lingfeng said coldly. Registered disciple? Luo Tianhong licked his lips. He had already seen Duan Lingding's power. Although he wasn't as scary as Jian Wushuang, he was still a superb existence that made him passionate. To be able to be formally apprenticed to a superb existence, even though he was just a registered disciple, it was worthy for Luo Tianhong to fight for it. He is my opponent? Luo Tianhong looked at the brawny man in front of him. The brawny man's face was like a grave, covered in hopelessness. However, the aura he carried reached the level of a peak void real god. A universe god had to fight with a top void real god and had to kill him. That was quite challenging. However, for a true top genius, it was doable. Forget about the others, at least Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng could do that when they were universe gods. Listen up, Duan Lingfeng looked at the brawny man. I'll give you a string of hope. Fight with your all. As long as you can kill your opponent, you can live. If not, die. The brawny man from Soul-Snatching Palace originally felt hopeless. However, when he heard what Duan Lingfeng had said, his eyes glowed. He stared at Luo Tianhong and an unprecedented murderous intention and hope of life soared. The power that a person had during his final crucial moment was the scariest. Let's begin, Duan Lingfeng said coldly. The two of them immediately fought in the void. One of them wanted to be formally apprenticed to Duan Lingfeng. The other merely wanted to survive. Both exploded their strongest fighting power. At the border of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng stood side by side. To have this young man fight with a top void real god, and the match will be called with life and death. Only you could think of such an idea, Jian Wushuang said. He wants to be my disciple. How could it be so simple? Plus, the opponent that I assigned to him is evenly matched after all. It couldn't be considered as unfair, Duan Lingfeng said coldly. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows but didn't say much. After all, it was Duan Lingfeng picking his disciple, not him. In the void, the battle between a universe god and a real god lasted for very long. Both parties have firm beliefs and were extremely mad in the fight. In the end, it became a competition of willpower and endurance. Finally, the outcome of the match was out. The one who survived until the end was Luo Tianhong. He stood in the void as his figure quivered. He was covered in blood and his face was pale, but his eyes were shimmering with joy. In front of him was the dead body of the brawny man. I won! Luo Tianhong was excited. The blood in his body was boiling too. The battle could be considered as a transformation to this young man. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly as he watched. Not too shabby. Duan Lingfeng nodded faintly. Luo Tianhong defeated his opponent. According to what Duan Lingfeng had said earlier, he had taken him in as his registered disciple. Then Luo Tianhong left with Duan Lingfeng. As for Jian Wushuang and his troop, they left Holy Kingdom of Sky Luo as well. On their way out, Jian Wushuang sent a message to Purple Moon Emperor and informed him about the ins and outs. Jian Wushuang didn't intend to hide anything, but he kept the relationship between himself and the Holocaust sect master, Lung Rushua, a secret. It seems that the news that Sanctuary Alliance got isn't false, Purple Moon Emperor exclaimed. Not long ago, although Holocaust sect master united Holocaust sect using thunderous measures, There are still many within Holocaust sect that aren't willing to follow their sect master's command. They are considered betrayers. Holocaust sect has been wiping out these traitors all this while. As for the 7th Palace Master, Sanctuary Alliance knew about him. Previously, Holocaust sect held great power and an eminent position. It's a pity that he wasn't on the same side with Holocaust sect master. Hence, after Holocaust sect master attacked, he brought a bunch of experts and fled. At the same time, he seemed to have brought along some treasures that Holocaust sect collected. It's a pity that these treasures didn't fall into your hands, but were taken away by Holocaust sect master. Jian Wushuang clearly understood when he heard that. Jian Wushuang, eternal chaotic world isn't peaceful. Holocaust sect and Acheron Palace are preparing to launch an attack. I reckon it wouldn't be long until they make a big movement again. Before that, you have to focus on cultivation and seize the time to break through and become an almighty. You are an inverse cultivator. As soon as you become an almighty, you will be compared to a great emperor favorably. By then, you can be one of the highest fighting powers of Sanctuary Alliance. This is the most important task for you now, Purple Moon Emperor said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded. He also knew what was most important to him then. To step foot on the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill, breakthrough and become an almighty should be the most important task on hand. Return to Green Fire World. The spiritual power is the most intense there. I will get the best result if I cultivate there, Jian Wushuang decided. An ancient silver spaceship immediately flew in the direction of Green Fire World. They passed through some space-time wormholes along the way. Jian Wushuang then arrived at Green Fire World in no time. Jian Wushuang had only left Green Fire World for a few thousand years. But in the few thousand years, there had been a drastic change in Green Fire World. Firstly, the spiritual influence of heaven and earth. A few thousand years ago, before Jian Wushuang left, the spiritual influence of heaven and earth in Green Fire World already far beyond 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Then, after a few thousand years of evolution, the spiritual influence of heaven and earth in Green Fire World and the overall cultivation environment was at least tens of times stronger than 10 cultivation sanctuaries. It was merely a conservative estimation that Jian Wushuang did. Jian Wushuang even thought the cultivation environment in Green Fire World could compare favorably with the first era. Even though there was a distance, it wasn't big. In such an outstanding cultivation environment, Green Fire World's cultivators naturally improved rather quickly under Jian Wushuang's guidance. Then, the number of universe gods in Green Fire World had more than tens of thousands of people. There was even more than 10 real gods. It has only been a few thousand years? Jian Wushuang exclaimed in surprise. In the small Green Fire World, the number of cultivators was far less than in other worlds. However, the experts in Green Fire World were about the same compared to an ordinary Holy Kingdom. Plus, Green Fire World continued to evolve and it was improving at a shocking speed. Especially when Jian Wushuang came, he had brought complete guidance from real God to almighty level. In all aspects and a variety of them, he had brought back enormous resources. Jian Wushuang prepared all of that for Green Fire World when he was in Lineage of Star. If the guidance in Green Fire World was only to reach real God level, at most it could give birth to real God. Then, Green Fire World possessed the ability to give birth to an almighty. Not only Sir Gods, but also Emperor Gods. Green Fire World could give birth to them, but they needed time. Besides, after Jian Wushuang returned from Lineage of Star, he improved Wushuang City at the first instant. Then, he left behind richer resources and opportunities in Wushuang City. After that, Wushuang City became a true land of opportunity. As long as one was powerful and lucky enough, they would receive great opportunity in Wushuang City. I have prepared whatever I have to prepare. I tried my best to perfect the cultivation environment in Green Fire World. Now, it depends on how hardworking the juniors in Green Fire World are. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He foresaw that in another few thousand years or tens of thousands of years, Green Fire World would be well developed and there would be countless experts sparring. Previously, Jian Wushuang had thought that Green Fire World would only possess the potential of becoming a new sanctuary in Eternal Chaotic World. However, from what it seemed, it wasn't just that. After that, Jian Wushuang started cultivating in seclusion in Wushuang City as well. In the secret room, Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged. King of venomous worms, for the rest of this time, I have to depend on you? Jian Wushuang smiled. I'll take care of it. King of venomous worms nodded. The environment in Green Fire World is outstanding. It will be easier to recover your power of ancient tribe bloodline. With my ability, I should be able to fully recover your power of ancient tribe bloodline in 5,000 years. 5,000 years? Jian Wushuang was very contented with that. One should know that when his 6 stars broke, King of venomous worms had taken almost 7,000 years to fix it. Then, he only needed 5,000 years, which was much shorter comparatively. The power of ancient tribe bloodline would be passed to King of venomous worms while Jian Wushuang fully concentrated on studying the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill. The 7th step of inverse cultivation skill was also the level of an almighty. In ancient times, it was called chaotic realm. As an inverse cultivator, the current stage was known as chaotic supreme. The realm was similar, but the disposition was different. Every single step an inverse cultivator took was different from the others. Every single step taken was entirely different from an ordinary cultivator's. For instance, at real god level, just how scary was an inverse cultivator as ultimate real god? Jian Wushuang had been gifted with divine power and a divine body that were comparable favorably with an emperor god at his 3rd stage ultimate real god level. Hence, he could perform such terrifying fighting power at real god level. The 7th step of an inverse cultivator, chaotic supreme, was different from chaotic realm of an ordinary cultivator. There was naturally a huge difference. As for where the difference was, Jian Wushuang had never reached that level. So he didn't know. I have reached the extreme limit of ultimate real God. My substantive soul has formed and my comprehension of doctrine has reached the requirements. In other words, I have fulfilled all prerequisites to break through from real God to Almighty. Next, the only thing left is an opportunity. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and started cultivating. He didn't know how long he needed to break through, but he couldn't be in a hurry. He had to wait patiently. For the rest of the time, Jian Wushuang had been cultivating. Time was merciless and it flew past. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang had cultivated for 12,000 years in Wushuang City. 12,000 years wasn't long to many almighties in eternal chaotic world. On the contrary, it was a fairly short time. There were many immortals who cultivated in seclusion for at least 100,000 years or even hundreds of thousands of years. However, to Jian Wushuang, 12,000 years was the longest period he had cultivated for. Although it had been man years, he didn't intend to exit seclusion. During the 12,000 years, regardless of if it was Lineage of Star or Green Fire World, it was very peaceful. Lineage of Star had gained a steady footing as the #1 force in Sanctuary Alliance. With Jian Wushuang serving as a deterrent force, all forces in Sanctuary Alliance didn't seem to have anyone who dared to challenge Lineage of Star. With such a position, Lineage of Star developed extremely quickly. Their overall power had been stronger and their foundation became firmer too. As for Green Fire World, just like Jian Wushuang had expected, the speed of growth was terrifying. In merely 12,000 years, Green Fire World's overall power already reached a brand new level. There were more than 100 real gods and there were countless universe gods. It was a pity that there had yet to be any almighties. Jian Wushuang also knew that with the assistance of an outstanding environment and abundant resources, it wouldn't be difficult for Green Fire World to give birth to Universe God and Real God. Or even Chaotic Real God could be nurtured much easier. However, for Almighty was different from Real God after all. Green Fire World had the ability to nurture an Almighty. However, to give birth to an Almighty in a short period of time, it was still quite impossible. He reckoned that it would at least require continuous nurturing for 20,000 years until Green Fire World give birth to an Almighty. In 100,000 years, Green Fire World should be barely comparable with a sanctuary in Eternal Chaotic World. However, it would be unrealistic if Green Fire World wanted to continue to nurture in peace for another 100,000 years. On the huge ancient battlefield, there was a huge head lying there in silence. The huge head was boundless. Green Fire World was located at the core of the head. It was merely a small dot on the head. At that very moment, there was a malicious-looking young man who appeared on the head. The malicious-looking young man was Emperor God Xianxia. Emperor God Xianxia had arrived at the battlefield over 12,000 years ago through the hidden space gap. Then, he had been wandering in the battlefield. Until then, it was already over 12,000 years. During the 12,000 years, he clearly knew how great the value of the ancient battlefield he was at was. Forget about the rest, in just 12,000 years he obtained various kinds of opportunities. With the opportunities, his power had increased tremendously. So magical! The ancient battlefield is too magical, Emperor God Xianxia muttered. After he had wandered in the ancient battlefield for over 12,000 years, he knew the place better. There was no doubt that the ancient battlefield was more precious than the ancient mystery land. Not only because it was an ancient battlefield, it was much broader and vast than ancient mystery land. There were more opportunities as well. Most importantly, there was no one else wandering in the ancient battlefield. For instance, the ancient mystery land had opened countless times in the Second Era, let alone the First Era. Countless times of opening and large numbers of experts would search for opportunities each time. Hence, many opportunities had been unearthed. Those that had yet to be revealed should be hard to obtain by others as well. However, the ancient battlefield was entirely different. Boundless opportunities contained were completely on display, and there were too many opportunities around. It's a pity that I am weaker in power and my defense power isn't strong enough. There are many places with great opportunities, but I dare not wander. Otherwise, I could achieve even more. Emperor God Xianxia clenched his hands. He was very careful, very cautious. Once he noticed that something was not right, he would immediately leave. He'd rather not get the opportunity than taking a bigger risk. Because he was cautious, he had survived for over 12,000 years. Otherwise, the ancient battlefield that contained huge dangers would have killed him many times. Emperor God Xianxia thought. Just then, Emperor God Xianxia was surprised. He suddenly noticed the few auras within his soul power's sensory range. These are cultivators? Emperor God Xianxia was shocked. He thought that there was no one who knew the ancient battlefield and there was only him alone who had the advantage. But then, he noticed other cultivators on the ancient battlefield. Although the few cultivators were not powerful. Let's take a look first. Emperor God Xianxia squinted his eyes as he moved in the direction of the few cultivators. In the void, there were 4 figures flying forward slowly. There was a mixture of men and women. They looked really young and they were only giving out Universe God auras. The one leading them was a brown-haired young man who was Universe God in the 3rd heaven. We are reaching Purple Flame Realm soon. Be careful. Remember what Master said. The brown-haired young man urged. The other 3 people nodded faintly and there was a tinge of excitement in their eyes. The 4 of them were from Green Fire World. They were cultivators that came for training in the ancient battlefield. They were also from the same sect. Green Fire World then was different from before. There were many real gods and also universe gods. There were so many cultivators who wandered in the surrounding battlefield looking for opportunity. It was naturally much easier to find opportunities on the battlefield. For instance, on the skull where Greenfire World was located, there was more than half of the territory that Greenfire World had probed and found more mystery land. Purple Flame Realm was one of them. Purple Flame Realm has a total of 3 levels. The danger on the first level is enough to kill many universe gods. As for the second levels, it is simply courting death if a universe god enters. Even when our master enters the second level, he has to be cautious and not reckless. As for the third level of Purple Flame Realm, in the entire Green Fire World, only the legendary Wushuang City Master could go in. Anyone else, including our masters or even our master's master, will definitely die once they enter. The brown-haired young man looked at the other 3 universe gods. The 4 of us can only challenge the first level in Purple Flame Realm at most, and we have to be extremely careful. As for the second level, don't even think about it. Understand? Yes, Senior Qing Hao. The other 3 nodded simultaneously. The four of them were chatting casually, but they didn't know that their conversation was being eavesdropped on by Emperor God Xianxia, who was hidden in the dark. Four universe gods from the same sect? In their conversation earlier, they brought up about Purple Flame Realm and also Green Fire World. Emperor God Xianxia had creased his eyebrows earlier. He had heard, and he instantly knew that Purple Flame Realm would be a unique place in the surrounding battlefield. The four universe gods should be wandering in Purple Flame Realm. However, Green Fire World, Emperor God Xianxia didn't understand. Regardless, I'll know when I ask. Emperor God Xianxia smirked coldly and immediately walked forward. The four universe gods went in the direction where Purple Flame Realm was, under the brown-haired young man's lead. But suddenly Emperor God Xianxia, who was malicious-looking, blocked their way. The four universe gods immediately stopped and four pairs of eyes fixed upon Emperor God Xianxia. This person. The brown-haired young man's eyes dilated in shock. Although Emperor God Xianxia before him didn't give out much aura, the brown-haired young man still felt extremely pressured. The pressure was much stronger than when he faced his own master. The brown-haired young man took a deep breath and immediately bowed. "Greetings, Senior. I am Junior Qinghao." The brown-haired young man beckoned and bowed at Emperor God Xianxia. Immortal Palace was one of the top 9 major forces in Green Fire World. They were very famous. The brown-haired young man, Qinghao, should be a big figure in Immortal Palace. Theoretically, as long as the other person was experienced in Green Fire World, they should have heard of his name. However, Emperor God Xianxia blinked and seemed confused. He had been in Eternal Chaotic World for so long, but he had never heard of a sect named Immortal Palace. "I have something I'd like to ask you." Emperor God Xianxia looked at the four of them in front of him. "Yes, Senior. The four of us will tell you everything we know." Qinghao seemed rather calm. "I heard your conversation earlier and you talked about Green Fire World and also Immortal Palace that you brought up yourself. I wonder if you could tell me in detail." Emperor God Xianxia smiled and asked, "Senior, you don't know about Green Fire World or Immortal Palace?" Qinghao stared and suddenly put his guard up. The other 3 disciples from Immortal Palace looked terrified as well. If the other party didn't know about Immortal Palace, it might be understandable. After all, Immortal Palace was established after the drastic change in Green Fire World. It had only been less than 20,000 years. Those who cultivate in seclusion most of the time during the year, it was normal if they didn't know about them. However, he didn't even know about Green Fire World. Obviously, he wasn't an expert from Green Fire World. Master, I met a mysterious expert on the ancient battlefield. He is from outside Green Fire World." Qinghao didn't move, but he sent a message to his master in secret. Qinghao responded at the first instant. However, when he tried to send a message, "What happened? My message can't go through." Qinghao was shocked. Then, Emperor God Xianxia had already seen through Qinghao's actions. He sneered, "Young man, don't even think about sending messages. It's useless. I have already sealed off this space-time. With just 4 universe gods, you can't possibly break it. Don't even think about running away either." Then, there was pressing stress soaring from Emperor Xianxia's body. "Put on, put on, put on, put on." The 4 disciples from Immortal Palace, including the brown-haired young man, Qinghao, knelt down straight away. Their heads were buzzing and they couldn't come back to reality for quite some time. Finally, Qinghao was the first one who recovered. He clenched his teeth as he glared at Emperor God Xianxia. He understood that the opponent was far beyond their match. Forget about themselves, even their masters or masters' masters weren't his match. In other words, it was true when the opponent said that the 4 of them couldn't escape. "The 4 of you answer my questions. I may let you go." Emperor God Xianxia smiled maliciously. "Dream on." Qinghao humphed coldly. He knew that the opponent was from outside Green Fire World and he had wicked ideas in his mind. He naturally wasn't willing to cooperate. "He, a person of integrity." Emperor God Xianxia scoffed and pointed casually with his fingertip. There was a light that burst out and instantly pierced the head of the favored one from Immortal Palace. Then, his aura vanished into thin air. "Brother Qinghao, The other three next to him looked distressed. As your senior has died, it's your turn now. Answer my questions honestly or die like your senior did. Make your own choice. Emperor God Xianxia's voice was cold. With his measure of an emperor god expert, 3 universe gods who were inexperienced naturally couldn't withstand it. They immediately gave him all the answers that he wanted on a silver platter. Green Fire World is a big world? After finding out about Green Fire World, even Emperor God Xianxia was shocked. The ancient battlefield that he was in had never had any other cultivators but him alone wandering there. But then, he had realized that there was a big world in the ancient battlefield, and the big world seemed to be nurtured from the battlefield. A big world that was nurtured from the ancient battlefield. Just how terrifyingly valuable was the world. That's not right. Emperor God Xianxia shook his head. The spiritual influence of heaven and earth here in the ancient battlefield is so much more intense. The cultivation environment was much more outstanding than the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. On top of that, the ancient battlefield is a land of opportunities. Just how strong were the experts from Green Fire World? Emperor God Xianxia became alert at the first instant. With such outstanding cultivation environment, the overall power of a cultivator shouldn't be any weaker. Who is the strongest person in Green Fire World? How strong is he? Emperor God Xianxia asked straightforwardly. One of the disciples from Immortal Palace answered, "The strongest person in Green Fire World is naturally the Wuxia City Master. He built Wuxia City himself, and it is no doubt the #1 sanctuary. Countless experts fought to cultivate in Wuxia City. However, rules applied. Although Green Fire World has 9 top forces, none of the 9 top forces dare to go against Wuxia City Master's command. He is widely acknowledged as the strongest one. As for Wuxia City Master's power, no one knew. We only knew that our masters, or even our master's master, said that they aren't Wuxia Master's match. At which level are your master and your master's master at?" Emperor God Xianxia continued to question them. "Our master is a void real god. As for our master's master, the master of Immortal Palace, he was an eternal real god, the top eternal real god." The disciple from Immortal Palace answered honestly. Emperor God Xianxia heard the disciple from Immortal Palace's answer, and he was surprised. The palace master of one of the 9 top forces is only an eternal real god? How could he be so weak? Emperor God Xianxia was confused, but then he finally understood after a round of questions. Haha, I see. It turned out that Green Fire World had only started evolving in the past 10,000 years. The cultivation environment here was terrible. They didn't even have any universe gods. Then, somehow or other, the spiritual influence of heaven and earth became more intense. On top of that, the expert from Green Fire World somehow received some cultivation guidance. Hence, the experts in Green Fire World slowly grew. No wonder. In such an outstanding cultivation environment, the palace master of one of the 9 forces is only an eternal real god. Emperor God Xianxia smiled, and his smile looked malicious. There was boundless surprise in his eyes too. Great, that's great. Even heaven is helping me. Previously, I found the ancient battlefield that was totally sealed off from eternal chaotic world. Then, I found another big world that possesses great potential. An Emperor God Xianxia naturally could tell the value of Green Fire World. Although Green Fire World had yet to develop, it was like a newborn baby. It required time to slowly grow. Once it was fully grown, it was simply unimaginable how great of a level it would reach. Emperor God Xianxia found out about the situation of Green Fire World and instantly had many wicked ideas pop into his head. Conquer Green Fire World and make Green Fire World into his private backyard. Let's go. Let's head to Green Fire World. Emperor God Xianxia immediately forced the 3 disciples from Immortal Palace to lead the way to Green Fire World. In the beginning, he was worried about the standard of the experts in Green Fire World. But now he didn't care much. Even Palace Master from the 9 strongest forces was merely eternal real god level. The so-called Supreme Wuxia City Master couldn't be that powerful. From Emperor God Xianxia's point of view, Wuxia City Master would at most be a chaotic real god. He reckoned that he shouldn't be the top among chaotic real gods as well. As for Almighty, Emperor God Xianxia didn't consider that at all. There weren't many Almighties from eternal chaotic world. It wasn't a level that one could easily achieve. Even if Wuxia City Master had already broken through and become an Almighty, he wouldn't care. One should know that he was an Emperor God. Plus, as he had wandered in the ancient battlefield for over 12,000 years, he was very powerful. Hence, he didn't bother much. Just a green fire world, he could overtake it easily alone. Very soon, Emperor God had reached the entrance of Green Fire World and Green Fire Palace under the lead of the disciples from Immortal Palace. In Wuxia City, in the secret room, Jian Wuxia sat alone with his eyes closed. He had been cultivating in seclusion for the past 12,000 years. He broke 7 stars previously and they was all recovered. His power had resumed its peak. Not only that, his comprehension of doctrine improved tremendously as well. Both spacetime doctrine and reincarnation doctrine had already reached the extreme limit of the 8th level in Doctrine Palace. In terms of sword principle, he had also had a breakthrough. The current me has improved tremendously in my overall power, but it is a pity that I will never step out to the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill, Chaotic Supreme. Since he had received the 7th step of inverse cultivation skill, he had been studying it. He had been figuring out ways to break through. He had already put in painstaking effort, but he felt that he was just slightly away from breakthrough. The slight bit was just like a layer of window paper. With just one poke, it would break. However, the window paper required a great opportunity. Hence, Jian Wuxia tried to keep himself composed. Just then, Jian Wuxia was surprised and he opened his eyes. His figure moved and he left the secret room. In the lofty discussion hall in Wuxia City, beer room, Jian Wuxia's body appeared on the highest throne out of nowhere. Father, Brother Wang Yuan, 4th brother, what's the matter? Why are you in a hurry to see me? Jian Wuxia looked at the 3 of them next to him. He said before he had started cultivating in seclusion. Unless it was something very urgent, one shouldn't interrupt him when he cultivated. There's something urgent. Jian Nanshan's face grew grave. Let me break this to you, Wang Yuan said directly. 3rd brother, there's an outsider in Green Fire World. Outsider. Jian Wuxia immediately looked distressed. Green Fire World and the entire ancient battlefield was under the cover of the Great Formation. Without the permission of the higher-ups in Green Fire Palace, no one could barge in as they wished. In such a situation, there were outsiders in Green Fire World. Either he is an expert in a deep sleep in the ancient battlefield, or he is an expert from eternal chaotic world who came to the battlefield through the space gap in ancient Mysteryland by luck. Just like King Gutong back then, Jian Wuxia muttered to himself. How's the power of this outsider? Jian Wuxia asked. Very powerful. Terrifyingly powerful, Wang Yuan said solemnly. Green Fire World grew over the years and our power is way beyond what it was in the past. There are many cultivators who have already reached the level of a real god. However, the outsider just stood there and many of our real gods didn't even have the guts to fight back. If I am not mistaken, he should have reached the almighty level that you mentioned. Almighty! Jian Wuxia squinted his eyes. The outsider seems to have understood the history of Green Fire World. He came and attacked Green Fire Palace with thunderous measures. Green Fire Palace couldn't resist at all. We sent out the few Dao soldiers that you left behind. However, with the few Dao soldiers joining forces, he still defeated them with ease. Wang Yuan said. Oh! Jian Wuxia raised his eyebrows. The few Dao soldiers that he left in Green Fire Palace were merely ordinary bronze-armored Dao soldiers. Theoretically, the few Dao soldiers joining forces could easily match a Sir God evenly. In the end, they were defeated with ease. The enemy was at least a top Sir God or Emperor God. Do you have any mirror image of him fighting with the Dao soldiers? Jian Wuxia asked. Yes, I ordered someone to record them. Su Ro stood up and took out a token. Su Ro waved and a huge mirror image immediately appeared in the void. In the mirror image, the outsider fought with the few Dao soldiers. A total of 4 Dao soldiers were fighting all out. But in the end, the malicious-looking young man only attacked casually and suppressed the 4 Dao soldiers easily. When Jian Wushuang saw the malicious-looking young man in the image, his eyes dilated in shock. "It's him!" Jian Wushuang recognized the malicious-looking young man. There were many experts in eternal chaotic world. There were many almighties among them. Any almighty who was famous, Jian Wushuang paid attention to them. The malicious-looking young man in the image was an emperor god. Jian Wushuang naturally knew him. Emperor god Xianxia. He came to Green Fire World? Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. Emperor god Xianxia had been wandering in the ancient mystery land. As he appeared there, no doubt, he had definitely come through the space gap in ancient mystery land. Luckily, it was only an emperor god who barged in unintentionally, and he isn't that powerful. He is well within my power to deal with. If it was really an ancient experts, it'd be real trouble. Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief. Emperor god Xianxia's power was ordinary, so Jian Wushuang could deal with him. If it were to be an ancient expert who had woken up from the ancient battlefield, that would be true trouble. An ancient expert, even the weakest one, wouldn't be one that Jian Wushuang could easily deal with once he resumed his peak fighting power. "Third brother, you know this outsider?" Wang Yuan asked. "Never met him, but I know his background." "So what happened after?" Jian Wushuang asked again. The outsider's intention is obviously to conquer Green Fire World. Hence, after he defeated the few Dao soldiers and revealed his power, he didn't massacre the higher-ups in Green Fire World, but he left a message. He said that he would give us 1 month's time to consider. 1 month later, if Green Fire World and the 9 top forces in Green Fire World do not yield to him, he will kill all of us one by one. Besides, he even brought up you, third brother. Wang Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang. "Oh? What did he say?" Jian Wushuang looked cold. He knows that third brother, Wushuang City Master, is widely acknowledged as the strongest person, and your word carries great weight. Hence, he said to let you go and see him. Wang Yuan said. "For me to see him?" The Emperor God Xianxia has guts. Jian Wushuang sneered, but he understood. "I reckon Emperor God Xianxia doesn't know my identity." Jian Wushuang knew just how famous he was in eternal chaotic world. Even great emperor had scruples, let alone just Emperor God Xianxia. However, Emperor God Xianxia didn't care about him, but had relayed a message for Wushuang City Master to see him personally. He definitely didn't know Wushuang City Master's true identity. Emperor God Xianxia probably only knew that the strongest person in Green Fire World was Wushuang City Master, but he didn't know the true name of the Wushuang City Master. If Emperor God Xianxia knew, forget about his mad behavior, he would have run away from Green Fire World long ago. "Where's this outsider now?" Jian Wushuang asked. "He's in the palace floating outside Green Fire Palace," Wang Yuan answered. "Very well." Jian Wushuang nodded faintly, while he put on a playful smile. "Third brother, what are you going to do?" Wang Yuan looked at him. "What to do? As Emperor God Xianxia wants me to go and see him, I shall grant his wish." Jian Wushuang sneered, but his smile was as cold as a blade. On that very day, Jian Wushuang departed from Wushuang City and came before the palaces floating outside Green Fire Palace. In the palace right in the middle of the palaces, the malicious-looking Emperor God Xianxia was sitting on a grand throne casually, while the cultivator from Green Fire World stood below in reverence. Most of the cultivators from Green Fire World had reached real god level. Then, there were a few real gods who were nodding and bowing with ingratiating smiles on their faces. Previously, when Emperor God Xianxia had barged into Green Fire Palace, he had suppressed the entire Green Fire Palace alone and also the 9 top forces in Green Fire World. The news had spread like wildfire. Naturally, it caught the attention of the experts who were suppressed by Green Fire Palace and the 9 top forces. They had approached him to seek his backing. Then, there were a bunch of people gathered under the command of Emperor God Xianxia. "Mr. Emperor God, according to the news that I've gotten, the higher-ups of the top 9 forces are gathered at Green Fire Palace. I reckon they are thinking of countermeasures. Besides, there were experts from Green Fire Palace who requested Wushuang City Master to get involved." A purple-haired elder reported politely. Hee hee, Mr. Emperor God, you don't have to go through the trouble. You can totally wipe out Green Fire Palace directly, as well as the top 9 forces. Then, build another brand new force to unite Green Fire World. Wouldn't that be easier? Yeah. Green Fire Palace and the 9 top forces, although they could agree to yield to you because of fear towards I reckon it would only be temporary. They are not trustworthy. The few of them started commenting. No matter if it was within an ordinary sect or force, there would be some traitors, let alone when they were in a big world. The few real gods at the scene were traitors of Green Fire World. They knew that Emperor God Xianxia was an outsider, but they revolted and went to his side without hesitation for their own benefit. Plus, they had been urging Emperor God Xianxia to wipe out Green Fire Palace and the 9 top forces, because the few of them most likely had been suppressed by Green Fire Palace and the 9 top forces once. On the highest throne, Emperor God Xianxia tapped the armrest with a malicious smile plastered across his face. I want a complete Green Fire World. Just like how the current structure with Green Fire Palace and 9 top forces are great. There's no need to wipe them out. What I want to do now is to replace Wuxia City Master so that the cultivators in Green Fire World take me as the strongest person, treat me as a god. That'll be enough. Of course, if they don't act wisely, they can't blame me. The few real gods were unhappy but didn't talk anymore. Then, a figure in a black robe walked in and bowed at Emperor God Xianxia. Mr. Emperor God, Wuxia City Master is here. Oh! Emperor God Xianxia raised his eyebrows. Wuxia City Master. The few real gods gasped a breath of cold air. They were born in Green Fire World. They knew the legends about Wuxia City Master. Wuxia City Master was totally a legend in Green Fire World. Any single person couldn't help but reveal reverence and worship when they bring up Wuxia City Master. Although the few real gods had already switched allegiance to Emperor God Xianxia, they were still fearful of the legendary Wuxia City Master from the bottom of their hearts. However, the moment they recalled Emperor God Xianxia's power, the few real gods felt reassured. Humph! At least Wuxia City Master is smart enough. Of course, no matter how high his position is in Green Fire World, he is just a real god after all. How could he be compared to an emperor god favorably? From what I can see, Wuxia City Master is definitely panicking. He must be afraid that Mr. Emperor God will kill him later. What Wuxia City Master? He's nothing before Mr. Emperor God. The few real gods continued to praise him. Emperor God Xianxia sneered. Wuxia City Master ain't that dumb. Let him wait outside for a bit. Yes. The man in the black robe who came to send the message turned to leave. Outside the palaces, there were a few figures standing side by side. In Green Fire Palace that was not too far away, there were many higher-ups from Green Fire World who were paying attention. The higher-ups from the 9 top forces were standing there as they watched too. Most of them were anxious. Although Jian Wuxia had saved Green Fire World more than once and there was no doubt about his power, the cultivators in Green Fire World weren't like before. They could tell that Jian Wuxia was only a real god. However, the outsider Emperor God Xianxia was the legendary Almighty. It was said that the top of the pyramid in the outside world. Between real gods and almighties, the difference was ridiculously huge. Hence, although they were absolutely obliged to Jian Wuxia, they were still extremely worried. Mr. Emperor God, tell you to wait here. The man in a black robe who had come to send the message was arrogant. He was unprecedentedly excited too because he knew that those standing before him were the expert higher-ups from Green Fire World and also the legendary Wuxia City Master. To block Wuxia City Master outside the door and make him wait, he had never thought about it before. He wants us to wait here? The bastard! Wang Yuan immediately cursed with anger. No hurry. As he wants to put on airs, I will let him do it. I wonder how is he going to end this later? Jian Wuxia smiled faintly but didn't care much. Qiu Yu, who was next to Jian Wuxia, shook her head slightly. She started to pity Emperor God Xianxia, who didn't know how high the sky was. Jian Wuxia didn't wait for long. There was finally movement among the palaces. Emperor God Xianxia flew over with a few real gods surrounding him. Rumble. There was vast divine might spreading out from Emperor God Xianxia as he pressed the earth. He had yet to arrive, but his voice reverberated through the universe. Among you, who is Wuxia City Master? Emperor God Xianxia's voice was cold with a tinge of a high and mighty aura. He put his hands behind his back as he stood in the void above. He surveyed everyone beneath him. He came before Jian Wuxia, but he didn't bother to look at Jian Wuxia. He heard from the real god under his command that Wuxia City Master was only a real god. Just a real god wasn't worth him taking a look at. Rumble. The divine might of an emperor god pressed the scene so mightily. The experts from Green Fire World at the scene revealed an expression of terror and reverence. Before an emperor god, their strongest cultivator was only a real god. They didn't even have the guts to attack. The purple-haired elder next to Emperor God Xianxia was like a fox borrowing the awe of a tiger and roared. Mr. Emperor God came personally. Why aren't you on your knees yet? Knees. Jian Wuxuang's gaze turned cold as he glanced at Emperor God Xianxia, who was high above. He lifted the corners of his lips into a unique curve. You told me to come and see you personally. When I came, you made me wait for a while. Now, you want me to kneel before you? Emperor God Xianxia. I really wonder who gave you the courage to do such things. Jian Wuxuang's voice had a tinge of disdain as it resounded in the universe. Emperor God Xianxia, who stood arrogantly above with his hands behind him, was shocked. Since he had come to Green Fire World, although he put his power in display, he had never announced his name. For instance, the real gods who sought his patronage only referred to him as Emperor God. But no one knew his name. However, the person could call him by his name. You are... Emperor God Xianxia looked down slightly. Only then, he finally looked at Jian Wuxuang. It was the first time he had looked at Jian Wuxuang after he had walked out of the palace. With one glance, he saw Jian Wuxuang's appearance and felt the unique aura clearly. Emperor God Xianxia was stunned. Not only his gaze but his expression stiffened. Even his heart seemed to have stopped beating then. The entire space-time paused. Only Emperor God Xianxia was looking at Jian Wuxuang in shock. After a while, Virum, Emperor God Xianxia quivered and he could feel as though his scalp had exploded. You are... Sword Emperor. Emperor God Xianxia stared at Jian Wuxuang. His expression was as though he had seen a ghost. He really thought he had seen a ghost. A sword emperor who was famous for his bad name in eternal chaotic world. He, of course, could recognize him. Emperor God Xianxia was extremely fearful of Sword Emperor. If he were to come across Jian Wuxuang in eternal chaotic world, he definitely would take another route without hesitation and didn't dare to offend him. But then, he saw Sword Emperor in Green Fire World? How is this possible? How could it be? How could Sword Emperor be here? Emperor God Xianxia was in disbelief. The ancient battlefield where Green Fire World was so secretive. After over 12,000 years of wandering, Emperor God Xianxia was sure that the ancient battlefield had almost never been wandered before. It was totally sealed off from eternal chaotic world. Hence, Green Fire World on the ancient battlefield was naturally sealed off from the world as well. He had never expected himself to come across any experts from eternal chaotic world there, let alone the infamous Sword Emperor. Before he had taken action against Green Fire World, he had found out about Green Fire World and he also knew Wuxia City Master. He also knew that Wuxia City Master was only a real god. The truth was as such, he was only a real god. However, he had never expected Wuxia City Master to be Jian Wuxuang. Wuxia City Master? Jian Wuxuang. Emperor God Xianxia felt bitter. Judging by the name itself, Wuxia City Master did carry the name Wuxuang. However, there were so many people with the same name. Who would associate Wuxia City Master with Jian Wuxuang? Emperor God Xianxia. Emperor God Xianxia was still astonished, terrorized and in disbelief when Jian Wuxuang spoke again. You haven't replied to my question. I'd like to know who gave you such courage. Emperor God Xianxia was stunned and he had yet to reply. The purple-robed elder, who was like a fox borrowing the awe of a tiger, bellowed. How dare you speak to Mr. Emperor God like that? Wuxia City Master, Are you sick of living? The moment he said that, Jian Wushuang's face grew grave. However, Emperor God Xianxia was covered in a cold sweat. He stole a glance at the purple-robed elder, and he was still smiling in disdain. Hong! Emperor God Xianxia slapped. The purple-robed elder had yet to respond, but bang! He had already become a cloud of bloody fog. The sight shocked the surrounding people, especially the few real gods who sought the patronage of Emperor God Xianxia. Before they managed to ask, they saw Emperor God Xianxia attacked again. Bang! 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 There were a few continuous bangs. The few real gods who sought patronage from Emperor God Xianxia turned into clouds of bloody fog and died. After that, Emperor God Xianxia then let out a breath of relief. Then he looked at Jian Wushuang. On his malicious face, there was an awkward smile. Sword Emperor. This is a misunderstanding. A great misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. A great misunderstanding. It reverberated through the universe, and all cultivators in Greenfire World were astonished. A misunderstanding? Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. I don't think so, Emperor God Xianxia. You wanted me to see you and I came. You wanted me to wait for you and I waited. Now, should I listen to the person from earlier and bow to you? No. How dare I? Sword Emperor. This is a misunderstanding. Emperor God Xianxia shook his head and took out a Qian Kuan ring. Sword Emperor. I crossed the line this time. This Qian Kuan ring has all the resources that I have gathered all my life. Take this as an apology to you, Sword Emperor. I hope Sword Emperor doesn't record a demerit. I will leave immediately and never step foot in Greenfire World ever again. Leave now. Jian Wushuang said coldly. There's no hurry. As we have met, I happen to have things to ask you, Emperor God Xianxia. For example, how did you come to this battlefield? Besides you, who else knows about this battlefield? This is simple. I can answer you right now. Emperor God Xianxia smiled faintly and looked as though he was more than happy to answer Jian Wushuang's question. But in the next moment, run! Swoosh! Emperor God Xianxia turned into a shrill black flowing light as he plunged to the vast battlefield behind. Without hesitation and extremely decisively, he knew the surrounding battlefield clearly and also the value of Greenfire World. As he had found out about the battlefield and Greenfire World, according to Sword Emperor's bad name and his conduct, he absolutely wouldn't let him leave alive. Absolutely not. Hence, he had to run. The experts from Greenfire World were dumbfounded at the sight. The cultivators from Greenfire World previously thought that Wushuang City Master was only a real god and he couldn't match Emperor God Xianxia evenly. However, then, Jian Wushuang had yet to attack and he only stood there, but Emperor God Xianxia had already started running for his life without hesitation. That is Wushuang City Master, the legend of our Greenfire World. Many experts from Greenfire World clenched their fists as their eyes shimmered with adoration. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang's face changed the moment he saw Emperor God Xianxia started running away. At first, he had wanted to ask a few questions before he killed Emperor God Xianxia. He had never expected Emperor God Xianxia to be so determined to run away. Humph! Can you escape? Jian Wushuang's cold voice reverberated in the universe. The moment his voice resounded, a vast purple light soared up and instantly covered a range of few million miles. One realm pearl turned into a formation at one's will. Shit! Emperor God Xianxia looked at the formation around him and his face grew grave. Not only that, he also realized that the moment the formation took shape, the surrounding spacetime would be sealed off. He couldn't even send a message to the outside world even if he wanted to. Sword Emperor, I have no intention to offend you. I can swear that I will never tell anyone else about this battlefield and Greenfire World. Let me go! Emperor God Xianxia roared. He regretted it. He regretted coming to Greenfire World. He had never expected to meet Sword Emperor there. Humph! So what if you swear? Secrets will only be safe with a dead person. Jian Wushuang was soaring with murderous intention. Swoosh! 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 For resplendent golden lights suddenly soared up and instantly burst out. That is, Looking at the four golden lights, Emperor God Xianxia's eyes dilated in shock. He also knew about Jian Wushuang. He knew that the scariest thing about Jian Wushuang was his four golden swords. The four golden swords possessed the power of a peak emperor god each. With four, even Palace Master Wu Luo, who was a peak emperor god, would be suppressed. Go away! At such a crucial moment, Emperor God Xianxia took out a huge axe. The huge axe was billowing with imposing aura. It was a chaotic divine treasure. Emperor God Xianxia wielded the axe in his hand. Dang! 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 There were four continuous low thuds and Emperor God Xianxia suddenly retreated. However, the four Hongjun golden swords burst out in a different direction from the impact. Ha! Jian Wushuang was shocked. From what he knew, Emperor God Xianxia was only an ordinary emperor god and probably at the bottom of the tier. He didn't even have any skills that he was good at. Theoretically, such an emperor god should be killed by his Hongjun golden swords with one attack. However, he had blocked the four Hongjun golden swords and wasn't injured. It seems that I belittled you. Jian Wushuang's face was cold and Blood Mountain sword was suddenly drawn out from the scabbard. Under the sword intention, he took a stride forward and plunged out. Not good. Emperor God Xianxia quaked with terror. The rumors said that Sword Emperor not only had the four golden swords, his close-body combat was terrifying too. If both collaborated flawlessly, he could easily kill a peak emperor god. I definitely can't fight him head-on. Emperor God Xianxia knew his limitations. He had wandered at the surrounding ancient battlefield for over 12,000 years. Because of the opportunities obtained, his power had increased tremendously. He could barely be considered to be one with fighting power of a peak emperor god. However, with such fighting power, he absolutely didn't stand a chance before the infamous Sword Emperor. Looking at Jian Wushuang approaching him, Emperor God Xianxia suddenly flicked his wrist and took out a bronze mirror that gave out mysterious aura. He gripped the bronze mirror tight as he concentrated his divine power. Birum! Birum! Two boundless auras soared up from the bronze mirror. The two auras were as cold as if they were from Acheron. In an instant, the two auras substantiated in the void and became two black shadows. The two shadows were like ordinary human cultivators, but they were greater in size. They were more than 3 meters tall. There wasn't real eyeballs in their eye sockets, only a ball of black flame, just like ghost fire. Hold him back! Emperor God Xianxia commanded, and the two black shadows suddenly charged at Jian Wushuang. The two cold yet fierce auras locked onto Jian Wushuang. What's that? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. He could feel that the two black shadows were fierce in fighting power. They had brought about pressure that wouldn't be weaker than an ordinary peak emperor gods. Plus, there were two shadows that joined forces which equaled to two peak emperor gods. Humph! You think you can stop me with these two shadows? Then you can escape. Jian Wushuang humphed coldly. Jian-yi! Swoosh! A figure suddenly appeared in the void, became engulfed in the formation and instantly turned into flowing light. He moved to Emperor God Xianxia at a terrifyingly fast speed. Although Jian Wushuang didn't care about Emperor God Xianxia in the beginning, there were too many associated matters after all. In order to prevent the uncertainties, he let Jian-yi rush over. Just as he was held back by the two shadows, Jian-yi took action. Damn it! Emperor God Xianxia grew distressed, but he wasn't hopeless. Then, he had already reached the border of the formation that was transformed with one realm pearl. Jian-yi was slightly further away from him. He totally stood a chance to flee. He flicked his wrist again and took out a stone rod. The stone rod was only half a rod left. The stone rod was a unique treasure that he had found during the 12,000 years he had wandered around the surrounding battlefield. It was extremely useful. It was originally complete. However, he had come across danger previously and he had broken half of it. In a life-and-death situation, I can't think so much. Emperor God Xianxia's gaze was cold. As he gripped his palm tight, bang! The remaining stone rod exploded. After it exploded, there was a billowing power that flooded. The strength of the power had yet to reach the level of a great emperor, but it was already extremely close to one. Plus, the power concentrated in one spot as it exploded. Hong! There was a loud bang on the purple formation that was made by one realm pearl. Then, in the place where the power swept out, there was a huge opening. I managed to escape. Emperor God Xianxia was filled with excitement. However, just as he smiled, he stiffened, because he had realized that Jian Yi was right behind him. And there was a scary palm which seized his throat. How could he be so fast? Emperor God Xianxia stared, and his face was in terror. This is Great Emperor. With astonishment, Emperor God Xianxia's head had already shattered into pieces. Rumble. The moment Emperor God Xianxia died, the two black shadows that were holding Jian Wushuang back vanished into thin air, and the universe resumed tranquility. Jian Wushuang moved and appeared next to Emperor God Xianxia. Looking at Emperor God Xianxia's dead body, Jian Wushuang looked solemn. Master, Jian Yi is useless. Jian Yi stood next to him in reverence. I can't blame you for this. I was too careless as I belittled Emperor God Xianxia, Jian Wushuang said in a low voice. At first, though Emperor God Xianxia was only an emperor god at the bottom of the tier and shouldn't be able to stir up any commotion in my hands, I thought I could ask him about how he got onto this battlefield in detail before I killed him. But I never expected that Emperor God Xianxia would be so decisive and start running for his life. Plus, his power has increased tremendously since before. From what Jian Wushuang knew, Emperor God Xianxia was only an ordinary emperor god and he didn't have any special skill. However, Emperor God Xianxia had put his power and skill on display and shocked Jian Wushuang. If I'm not mistaken, Emperor God Xianxia should have stayed on the battlefield for a long time, and he has received many opportunities. Hence, his power has improved so tremendously and he has so many unique treasures. With the aid of the treasures, he nearly escaped. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. If Emperor God Xianxia were to flee successfully, they would be in big trouble. However, although Jian Yi had killed Emperor God Xianxia, he had broken an opening on the formation from one realm pearl earlier. Even though Jian Yi had killed him immediately, Emperor God Xianxia could totally have sent out a message in that short time frame. From the moment I saw Emperor God Xianxia, I sealed off the surrounding space-time to make sure he couldn't send out any messages. But then, when he broke the formation of one realm pearl, the space-time was sealed off too. I didn't know if he sent anyone any messages. If he did, we will be in big trouble, Jian Wushuang muttered. He was most worried that the ancient battlefield and green fire world were exposed. By then, it would attract not just one or two experts. Experts from all over eternal chaotic world would flood in. The reason why he had killed Emperor God Xianxia was to shut him up. The most troublesome thing was that he didn't know if Emperor Xianxia had told anyone else about the ancient battlefield when he had been wandering there. If he really did tell the others and there was someone who knew he had died, the person would most likely expose the news to the public. By then, Emperor God Xianxia didn't seem to have a best friend with who could go through thick and thin together. And the ancient battlefield has such great opportunities. He shouldn't have told anyone but kept it all to himself, Jian Wushuang muttered. Of course, he was only guessing. He couldn't determine what exactly had gone on. Regardless of if there was a second person who knew of the ancient battlefield, I couldn't be bothered so much. It's best that I focus on improving myself. Jian Wushuang clenched his hand and he then looked at the Qian Kuan ring in Emperor God Xianxia's hand. Emperor God Xianxia had been wandering in the surrounding battlefield for so many years. He should have received many opportunities. Forget about the rest, just the bronze mirror that he took out and the half-stone rod that he had broken were unusual. Jian Wushuang immediately started inspecting. After a while, when Jian Wushuang flipped his hand, there was a bronze mirror that gave out a strange aura appeared in his hand. The bronze mirror. Jian Wushuang could feel how extraordinary the bronze mirror was, and he immediately started refining it. After a while, he found out the name and the function of the bronze mirror. 5 Fire Godly Spirit Mirror contains 5 godly spirits and is fed by divine power. It could explode with terrifying fighting power. Jian Wushuang's eyes were shimmering with joy. He knew that the 2 black shadows that popped out of the 5 Fire Godly Spirit Mirror were 2 godly spirits from the realm. In 5 Fire Godly Spirit Mirror, there were 5 godly spirits. The 5 godly spirits were the creator of the 5-fire godly spirit mirror. He removed the consciousness of 5 experts using thunderous measures, then refined the 5 expert spirits into the mirror. He fed the 5 godly spirits using divine power and woke them up when he was in a fight. As for the strength of the 5 godly spirits, it depended on the level of divine power fed. Remove experts' consciousness and refine their spirit into godly spirit. Such a cruel measure, Jian Wushuang complimented. He could tell that the refinery method of the 5-fire godly spirit mirror was extremely cruel. The treasure could be considered a ruffian treasure. However, like the saying, in this world, there was not wicked treasure, only wicked treasure users. The more divine power it's fed and the purer it is, the stronger the fighting power of the godly spirits will be, Jian Wushuang muttered. He could feel that the 5 godly spirits in the 5-fire godly spirit mirror were starving. It was obvious that the 5 godly spirits' power had been drained long ago, as they had stayed in the ancient battlefield for so many years without divine power. It wouldn't be long until Emperor God Xianxia had obtained the 5-fire godly spirit mirror. Although he had been feeding them with divine power, he was an ordinary emperor god after all. Even after he fed them, he could merely wake 2 godly spirits up to fight. Plus, the fighting power of the 2 godly spirits could only reach the level of an ordinary peak emperor god according to his divine power strength. They weren't exactly strong. However, if the 5-fire godly spirit mirror were to be in Jian Wushuang's hand, that'd be entirely different. Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator. Although he had yet to step foot on the 7th step of inverse cultivation, his divine power strength was absolutely comparable to an emperor god's. In collaboration with the power of ancient tribe bloodline, he would be far beyond an ordinary emperor god. Plus, his divine power was far beyond an ordinary emperor god's, much vaster. If he were to feed the 5 godly spirits with his all, there's no hurry. I'll try after I return to the secret room, Jian Wushuang muttered. Besides the 5-fire godly spirit mirror, Emperor God Xianxia had many treasures in his Chen Kuan ring. Most of them were chaotic divine treasure. As for the defense armor itself, there were a total of 3 pieces. Just like the one Emperor God Xianxia was wearing. It was also extremely powerful armor. No wonder when I attacked with 4 Hongjun golden swords earlier, he could withstand it so easily. It turns out that not only his power has reached the level of a peak emperor god, most importantly, he has a powerful defense armor. It seems that he has wandered in the surrounding ancient battlefield for many years, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He briefly went through his treasure and Jian Wushuang was quite satisfied. It was a pity that there was no other useful treasure for Jian Wushuang besides the 5-fire godly spirit mirror. Shuang Heir, 3rd brother, Jian Nantian, Wang Yuan, Su Rou and the others came next to Jian Wushuang. They looked at Emperor God Xianxia's dead body and everyone sighed. He is an almighty. Wang Yuan couldn't help but compliment. He's an almighty and he isn't weak. It's a pity that I killed countless Almagites when I was wandering in eternal chaotic world. Emperor God Xianxia is nothing, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. He was telling the truth. Back then, during the war in Lineage of Star, he wiped out the entire Almighty's alliance with one stroke. He had literally killed more than 100 Almighties in one breath. Compared to that, Emperor God Xianxia was nothing. Emperor God Xianxia had died and the real gods who sought patronage from him were wiped out too. The forces in Green Fire World naturally cheered with excitement. At the same time, the reverence they held for their Wushuang City Master became stronger too. It turned out that although Wushuang City Master was only a real god, he could kill an almighty easily. After Jian Wushuang had killed Emperor God Xianxia, he returned to the secret room in Wushuang City. Before him, the ancient bronze mirror floated in the air in silence. The bronze mirror gave out a unique aura. 5 godly spirits. I wonder what kind of fighting power they could display under the My Divine Power. There was anticipation in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He immediately churned his divine power along with the power of ancient tribe bloodline. Then, he poured them into the 5-fire godly spirit mirror. These divine powers and the power of ancient tribe bloodlines were absorbed by the 5 godly spirits in the bronze mirror. The 5 godly spirits became stronger after Jian Wushuang fed them with his divine power. Jian Wushuang went back to cultivation in seclusion, but he didn't know that when he killed Emperor God Xianxia in a void within the surrounding ancient battlefield but far from Greenfire World. Virum, a crimson flowing light that was originally flying at high speed suddenly stopped. The crimson light dispersed and revealed a young man with crimson hair in a crimson robe. Behind the young man was a crimson saber. His body was soaring with raging aura. His aura revealed that he had already reached the level of Sir God. One should know that, besides Jian Wushuang and his sword servant, Jian Yi, there was no other almighty in Greenfire World. The man with crimson hair in the crimson robe was obviously not someone from Greenfire World. Dead. Brother. He's dead. The man with crimson hair stared as he stood there with anger. He was Sir God Xuedao, a Sir God expert who recently broke through and became Sir God, and had just came to prominence in Eternal Chaotic World. At the same time, he had another identity, which was Emperor God Xianxia's Jr. Of course, there was almost no one who knew his identity in Eternal Chaotic World. Just like what Jian Wushuang knew, Emperor God Xianxia didn't have any friends that could go with him through thick and thin. Just like the battlefield with such major opportunities could be known as a big treasure. Even if there were to be someone he was close to, he might not be willing to share. But he was extremely close to his one and only junior. He had only told one person about the location of the ancient battlefield, which was his junior, Sir God Xuedao. When Emperor God Xianxia came to wander in the ancient battlefield, Sir God Xuedao came to the battlefield under the lead of Emperor God Xianxia. However, they didn't take any action together, but they parted ways to look for their own opportunities. Previously, when Emperor God Xianxia had found out about Greenfire World, he had immediately sent a message to Sir God Xuedao for him to rush over. It was a pity that Emperor God Xianxia had been killed by Jian Wushuang before Sir God Xuedao had managed to get there. Before Emperor God Xianxia died, he had broken the space-time seal that Jian Wushuang put up, and he sent a message to Sir God Xuedao. Sword Emperor is in Greenfire World. Greenfire World was Sword Emperor's old lair. Don't come here ever. After the message, Emperor God Xianxia's token didn't respond anymore. It was obvious that he had died. Sword Emperor? Sir God Xuedao's face grew in distress. Although he had just broken through and became a Sir God not too long ago, he had heard of Sword Emperor's bad name too. He was one of the experts on the top of the pyramid in Eternal Chaotic World, and he was widely recognized as the #1 genius. He was only a real god, but his fighting power was beyond a peak Emperor God. He could be known as terrifying. Sword Emperor is in this ancient battlefield? Greenfire World is his old lair. Sir God Xuedao looked horrified. At the same time, he was surprised. I know now. I have finally understood why Sword Emperor is so powerful and why he could improve so quickly. It turns out that he has been keeping these opportunities all to himself. He has been keeping this vast, ancient battlefield to himself. He possesses large resources that no one else in Eternal Chaotic World has. A person conquering such a vast ancient battlefield alone, taking all opportunities and treasures. If it were me, I reckon I wouldn't be much weaker than him. Sir God Xuedao roared as his gaze turned crimson. The crimson gaze not only showed that he was envious and jealous of Jian Wushuang, he also carried boundless hatred. Emperor God Xianxia and him were brothers in martial arts, and they were very close, ever closer than blood brothers. Emperor God Xianxia could be said to be his only relative in the world. Then Emperor God Xianxia died. No doubt, he had definitely died in the hands of Sword Emperor. Revenge. Must take revenge. I have to take revenge on behalf of my brother. Sword Emperor. Sir God Xuedao's face became red. He wanted to take revenge for Emperor God Xianxia. However, he clearly knew about his difference in power with Sword Emperor. It would be impossible if he wanted to take revenge on his own, even when he could receive opportunities in the ancient battlefield. Jian Wushuang was also improving. Plus, Jian Wushuang was only a real god then. No matter how he improved himself, it would be impossible if he wanted to catch up with Jian Wushuang. Hence, he could only rely on the others if he wanted to take revenge. Humph, you conquered such a vast, ancient battlefield and enormous resources alone. Aren't you a little too greedy? Sir God Xuedao looked cold as he thought to himself. Before long, he had made up his mind. That day itself, Sir God Xuedao returned on the original route where he came from. From ancient Mystery Land to the surrounding battlefield in Greenfire Land, it was connected via a space gap. One could reach the battlefield through the space gap in ancient Mystery Land. Similarly, the battlefield could reach the ancient Mystery Land through the space gap. Sir God Xuedao remembered the location of the space gap very clearly. Through the space gap, he returned to Eternal Chaotic World very quickly. In the dark void, Sir God Xuedao's figure towered. His appearance was vague. There were dozens of people standing before him in reverence. Most of the people were real gods. There were some universe gods as well. They were taken by Sir God Xuedao before them. At that moment, dozens of people were shivering in fear. They didn't know who the person was before them and why he had caught them, but they knew that the person before them was a true Almighty. I brought you here for you to do something for me. Sir God Xuedao overlooked the dozens of people before him. He immediately took out a bunch of tokens. The tokens here, all of you take one each. Then head to Vientiane Tower, Abysmal Palace, Soaring Heaven King Palace, Triple X, Century Phoenix Tower, Skyblade Group. Sir God Xuedao listed the names of the forces. Some of the forces were major sects and some were intelligence assassin groups. Just like Vientiane Tower, they were widely acknowledged as the number ones in Eternal Chaotic World. Abysmal Palace and Soaring Heaven King Palace were the number one major force. Sir God Xuedao then read out a dozen forces' names. After you get to the sects and forces, pass them the tokens. Don't speak a word after that. Sir God Xuedao's voice was cold. Then he took out a bunch of Qian Kuan rings. In these Qian Kuan rings, there are 1,000 doctrine gems each. They are your rewards. Besides, I have already left a special mark on each of your bodies. It'll be fine if you are to complete the task as I have instructed. Whoever doesn't send the tokens to the sects or forces within 100 years, I will take action directly and kill you. Understand? Sir God Xuedao looked at the people around him with a cold gaze. Don't worry, sir. We will definitely send these tokens within 100 years. There was a real god that answered. The others nodded their heads simultaneously. They never doubted the ability of the Almighty before them. He could kill them at any time, so they naturally didn't dare to go against him. On top of that, the reward that the Almighty offer could make them go crazy. Go ahead, Sir God Xuedao said. Then, the people immediately moved to their assigned sects and forces. In the void, there was only Sir God Xuedao left. He slowly revealed his face and he looked extremely ferocious. Sword Emperor, humph. You can totally kill my brother alone. But now, all experts from Eternal Chaotic World are going to find out about the ancient battlefield. I'd like to see if you are capable enough to kill all experts from Eternal Chaotic World. In no time, the top forces in Eternal Chaotic World and the major sects were going to receive a token. The token contained information and also a mirror image. In the mirror image, there wasn't any fierce fight nor any cultivators. Only a battlefield. An ancient yet vast battlefield. The mirror image showed a small region of the ancient battlefield. The top experts from Eternal Chaotic World could easily recognize from the small region that it was an ancient battlefield. Plus, it was one that everyone was unfamiliar with. It was even different to the ancient battlefield in ancient Mystery Land. There was no doubt that it was an entirely new ancient battlefield that no one had discovered. As for the information given, it was rather simple. It was the location of the hidden space gap in ancient Mystery Land. After the tokens reached the hands of the forces and sects, the experts were instantly astonished. It instantly stirred up an unprecedentedly great commotion in the entire Eternal Chaotic World. Such commotion was much greater than when ancient Mystery Land had never closed. One should know that it was a brand new ancient battlefield. One should know that there were many experts in ancient times and it was a period of great prosperity. After ancient times, the cultivators in the universe continued to grow weaker in power, and they had never reached brilliance in ancient times. Naturally, the ancient battlefield had become a place which all cultivators continuously explored. Ever since the Second Era, there were two well-known ancient battlefields, the First Lair and Ancient Mystery Land. The two ancient battlefields had contained great opportunity. However, the first one was too dangerous, while the second one was almost out of opportunities after so many years of exploration. Hence, although the two ancient battlefields were still attractive to many experts in Eternal Chaotic World, it wasn't too strong of an attraction. However, a brand new ancient battlefield would be entirely different. A brand new ancient battlefield contained complete opportunities. Enthusiastic. Madness. The Almighties on top of the pyramid in Eternal Chaotic World went crazy. Although Almighties were already high and above, and there weren't many things in the universe that could catch their attention. However, a brand new ancient battlefield that no one had ever found and contained boundless opportunities. It was enough to make the Almighties go crazy. Forget about the ordinary Almighties. Even those great emperors on the top wouldn't be able to stay composed after they found out about the news. On Thunderbolt Island, on Sanctuary Mountain, the two great emperors who had stayed on Thunderbolt Island all this while as they took care of all affairs in Sanctuary Alliance, Ancestor Tianchen and East Royal Emperor, they met up. The two of their faces looked extremely solemn. Who spread the news exactly? Is it verified? Ancestor Tianchen asked in a deep voice. At the moment, we don't know who spread it. The tokens were sent to various forces and sect by some real gods and universe gods. They only know that it was an Almighty that instructed them to do so, but they didn't know who the Almighty was. As for the validity of the mirror image and the information contained in the token, it has yet to be verified, East Royal Emperor said. Tokens sent to various forces and sects. It is obviously spread with intention, and he purposely hid his identity. Could it be a trap set up by Holocaust sect or Acheron Palace? Ancestor Tianchen creased his eyebrows and made a guess. Shouldn't be. Although the news has yet to be verified, judging from the mirror image, it should really be an ancient battlefield, and it was only partial of the ancient battlefield. The battlefield should be rather huge. With such a huge ancient battlefield unearthed, Holocaust sect and Acheron Palace could definitely conquer it in secret if they were to find it. Why would they spread the news to us? East Royal Emperor said. Besides, even if the two dark forces wanted to scheme against us in Sanctuary Alliance, they would only have the guts to scheme against a few of our experts. They wouldn't stand a chance to scheme against the entire Sanctuary Alliance or the entire Eternal Chaotic World. That's true, but we'd better be extra cautious. Ancestor Tianchen didn't dare to act recklessly but asked, how did the forces, sects, and also solo experts in Sanctuary Alliance respond to it? How else? They're mad. East Royal Emperor said directly. It is a brand new ancient battlefield. It is different from the one in Ancient Mystery Land. The Ancient Mystery Land was found in the First Era, and the experts in First Era already searched through it once. When it comes to the Second Era, many of our experts are still enthusiastic about it. However, this is a brand new ancient battlefield. Its value is far more precious than Ancient Mystery Land by 100 times. 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times. Forget about the experts and forces in Sanctuary Alliance, if it isn't because the two dark forces are at the verge of action and Sanctuary Alliance needs to take charge of the overall situation, I would have been on my way to the brand new ancient battlefield. East Royal Emperor absolutely didn't exaggerate. A brand new ancient battlefield was far more valuable than Ancient Mystery Land by 100 or 1,000 times. If you feel so, I think the other few couldn't sit still either, Ancestor Tianchen sighed. Of course they can't. I already heard that Red Dragon King, Abysmal Sanctuary, Colored Glaze Emperor, Purple Moon Emperor have already departed. I reckon the others will leave soon as well. As for the forces and experts under Sanctuary Alliance, most of them have already received the news and prepared to depart. As for those forces and sects that received the news first, I think a large number of experts have already reached the space gap located in the Ancient Mystery Land. Besides, the people that Sanctuary Alliance arranged among the special tribes sent updates too. The higher-ups and experts among the special tribes seem to have received the news too. They are getting ready too. Even the special tribes are taking action? Ancestor Tianqin was surprised. Eternal chaotic world was huge. Besides human cultivators, there were many special tribes, including ancient gods. The special tribes lived in different territories and they had hardly crossed paths with human cultivators. However, it didn't mean that they weren't well informed. Once a major incident took place in Eternal Chaotic World, or when there was huge opportunity, not only human cultivators but special tribes would be startled. It is the first time we have experienced the birth of a brand new ancient battlefield in the Second Era. It would be impossible for it to not stir any commotion. However, the ancient battlefield didn't appear earlier nor later but right now. It appeared at the most unstable times in Eternal Chaotic World. I wonder if it's a blessing or disaster, Ancestor Tianqin muttered. The birth of a brand new ancient battlefield would signify a major transformation and opportunity to countless cultivators in Eternal Chaotic World. However, Ancestor Tianqin was very worried. Oh yeah. Does Emperor Bai know about this yet? East Royal Emperor asked. I already sent a message to report to him. He simply asked a few questions but didn't comment much, Ancestor Tianqin said. Will he be heading over to the brand new ancient battlefield? East Royal Emperor was curious. I have no idea, but I think so. Ancestor Tianqin made a wild guess. The experts from various forces in Eternal Chaotic World went crazy just as East Royal Emperor had expected. The birth of a brand new ancient battlefield was too attractive to many almighties. There was no one who could resist such temptation. Naturally, there were countless experts preparing to depart to the ancient battlefield. Abysmal Palace. Sanctuary Master. Palace Master Wu Luo's face was fixed on Abysmal Saint Master, who was engulfed in darkness in front of him. 12,000 years ago, in the war with Lineage of Star, Abysmal Saint Master had been severely injured by a mysterious Emperor 13 with one stroke. He had nearly lost his life. Although he had spent the past 12,000 years in recovery, Abysmal Saint Master had gotten better but he still looked rather pale. The birth of a new ancient battlefield was a huge land of opportunities. Abysmal Palace can't miss it. Get ready now and depart soon. I'll make a move first, Abysmal Saint Master said in a deep voice. Yes. Palace Master Wu Luo immediately took the order and went to get ready immediately. After Palace Master Wu Luo left, Abysmal Saint Master flipped his hand and took out an elixir. The elixir was of an extremely high standard and it was from the ancient battlefield. Abysmal Saint Master swallowed the elixir and his face became rosy after a while. I already took 7 of the elixirs. I only have a total of 9. However, I have recovered less than 70%. Abysmal Saint Master's gaze turned gloomy as hatred filled his heart. The birth of a new ancient battlefield is a chance hard to come by. As long as I receive a huge opportunity, I will have a chance to match evenly with Emperor 13 and Emperor Bai, or even be above them. Emperor 13, Emperor Bai, just you wait. Abysmal Saint Master immediately departed. Soaring Heaven King Palace. In the lofty hall, Soaring Heaven King Palace's 2 founders, Emperor God Tianling and Emperor God Tianxiao, sat side by side. As for the bottom, there were a few almighties left from Soaring Heaven King Palace, but there were only 6 of them. Among them, there were 2 whose Soaring Heaven King Palace had paid a great price to pull them in. The birth of a brand new ancient battlefield is really a huge opportunity. However, the ancient battlefield has yet to be verified and no one is certain that that ancient battlefield will not have great danger. Just in case, I will make a trip to the ancient battlefield alone. Emperor Tianling's cold voice resounded. Tianxiao, you stay put at Soaring Heaven Land and wait for my update. Wait until the ancient battlefield is verified. Then, send the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Yes, brother? Emperor God Tianxiao nodded and reminded. The brand new ancient battlefield has great opportunities but carries danger too. You'd better be careful. Don't worry. I know my limits. Emperor God Tianling nodded faintly. Then, Emperor God Tianling went to the space gap in ancient Mysteryland alone. As for the other experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace, no one had moved yet. Real Martial Arts Divine Church. Since the war in Lineage of Star, Real Martial Arts Divine Church had suffered a great loss. Their master had been killed in the war as well. Hence, their overall power had diminished. Then, with all almighties in Real Martial Arts Divine Church added up, there were only 50% left and there was only one Emperor God left. Then, the Emperor God's eyes were showing joy as he looked at the surrounding Forcer gods. We, Real Martial Arts Divine Church, suffered great losses after the war with Lineage of Star. On top of that, Lineage of Star has been cornering us over the years and we are in a desperate situation. If this continues, we of Real Martial Arts Divine Church will be wiped out by Lineage of Star one day and become history. The Forcer gods from Real Martial Arts Divine Church couldn't help but clench their hands. They weren't in a favorable situation. One should know that Star Extermination Alliance, who had barged into Lineage of Star first back then, were almost wiped out. The 5 major forces experienced unprecedented damage. However, for the other 4 forces, although many of their almighties had passed away, their leader, their strongest representative, didn't die. With them attending garrison duty personally, even though they had lesser almighties, they still had deterrent forces. But only Real Martial Arts Divine Church had their one and only peak Emperor God killed. They had lost their greatest deterrent force. Real Martial Arts Divine Church was just like Lineage of Star back then when they had lost the Master of Star Palace. Real Martial Arts Divine Church also had many enemies. Previously, they had had scruples because of the Master of Real Martial Arts Divine Church, because of Real Martial Arts Divine Church's overall power. However, it was different now. On top of that, Lineage of Star has been seizing every chance to fight with them. Real Martial Arts Divine Church was really on the brink of collapse. It is the biggest danger we Real Martial Arts Divine Church are experiencing since the establishment of the sect. But God shows sympathy and gave us Real Martial Arts Divine Church another chance to glory again. This time, at the birth of this new ancient battlefield, we have to seize the chance and obtain major opportunities from it. The Emperor God clenched his hands as he bellowed. The 4 Sir Gods next to him nodded heavily. The brand new ancient battlefield was their last chance. Let's go! The 5 remaining almighties from Real Martial Arts Divine Church immediately departed. There was no almighty who stayed back. It was obvious that Real Martial Arts Divine Church was betting for the last time and they placed all their hope on the brand new ancient battlefield that they had just unearthed. Abysmal Palace, Soaring Heaven King Palace, Real Martial Arts Divine Church had already departed. Not only the 3 major sects but also Divine King Island, Highest Heaven Emperor Mansion, Emperor Sword Palace, and so on. Countless forces moved at the instance they received the news. A large number of experts were moving towards the brand new ancient battlefield simultaneously. Lineage of Star naturally received the news after such great movement. In the boundless void, the 3 Hall Master in Lineage of Star and all guest elders gathered at the hall. From the expressions on the guest elders' faces, they were thrilled with excitement. Same went to Hall Master Gu Xian and Hall Master Nyayun. Hall Master, there's an update. Almost all of the experts from various sects departed, especially those few who harbor resentment against us. They were especially fast. I heard that Real Martial Arts Divine Church sent all their almighties to the ancient battlefield. Hall Master Nyayun said and added, Hall Master Yuan, let's depart immediately too. Hall Master Nyayun's comment immediately received recognition from all guest elders. Yes, let's depart then. The major opportunities might be gone if we are slow. The birth of a brand new ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield is definitely filled with treasure. The first one there definitely received the most benefits. We have to hurry up. Guest elders exhorted one after another. Don't be in a hurry. Hall Master Yuan waved. Then Jian Wushuang wasn't in Lineage of Star. Hence, all affairs in Lineage of Star were naturally decided by Hall Master Yuan. What happened was a little strange. Hall Master Yuan creased his eyebrows. What's so strange about it? Hall Master Gu Xian and Hall Master Nyayun couldn't help but turn to look at Hall Master Yuan. From the information I have gotten, someone intentionally spread it. The way this person spread the news was by arranging real gods and universe gods to deliver a token that contained a mirror image of the ancient battlefield and also the location to each and every forces and sects. Only the major ones. These forces and these sects received the news at the first instant. But don't forget, Lineage of Star is widely acknowledged as the #1 major force in Sanctuary Alliance now. Theoretically, Lineage of Star should be the first to receive news. However, it has already stirred a commotion outside, but there is still no one who delivers us any token. Isn't it strange? Hall Master Yuan said solemnly. They heard what Hall Master Yuan had said and they were surprised. After listening to Hall Master Yuan's comment, they thought there was really something fishy. Maybe they forgot to send Lineage of Star a message. Or maybe they sent someone but the journey was too far, or the person who was sending the message ran into danger on the way and was killed. There are all kinds of possibilities. It doesn't mean that the person intentionally didn't send Lineage of Star any message, a guest elder said. It is possible. However, just in case, I have to report it to Palace Master, Hall Master Yuan said. The guest elders nodded. Lineage of Star honored Jian Wushuang as their leader. With such a major event, they naturally needed Jian Wushuang to give command personally. Palace Master, Hall Master Yuan immediately sent Jian Wushuang a message. Just as the entire eternal chaotic world was enthusiastic and mad because of the newborn ancient battlefield, Jian Wushuang continued to stay in Wushuang City in Green Fire World. In the secret room, Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged while the ancient bronze mirror floated before him in the air. The difference was that the aura that the 5-fire godly spirit gave out was much stronger than before. It was obviously the result of Jian Wushuang feeding the 5 godly spirits with an enormous amount of divine power. Then, the 5 godly spirits had already reached a satisfying situation. Even if he continued to feed them with divine power, the 5 godly spirits' power wouldn't increase anymore. Let's try the 5 godly spirits' power, Jian Wushuang thought. Under his lead, a boundless aura flowed out of the bronze mirror. The aura was extremely eerie as though it was from Acheron. Very soon, the aura substantiated into a black shadow in the secret room. The black shadow was much bigger than the one Emperor God Xianxia had performed back then. The rage that he gave out was much more terrifying too. Die! Under Jian Wushuang's command, the black shadow immediately took a leap. His right hand formed a fist and punched the void. There was a purple wall in the void in front of it. The purple wall was a formation that Jian Wushuang had used one pearl realm to form. Its defensive power was extremely strong. But then, bang! The black shadow's fist hit the purple wall and the entire one pearl realm formation started quivering at that instant and trembling in balance. There was no doubt that the one pearl realm formation had definitely collapsed in another similar punch. He is so powerful! Jian Wushuang's eyes were shimmering with joy. In terms of power, the godly spirit launched a punch that had definitely reached the extreme limit of an emperor god. He was much stronger than an ordinary peak emperor god. As for the godly spirit, he was originally an expert soul. Although he had lost his consciousness, he possessed some massacre skills that one had before he died. If they were to really be in a fight, even Jian Wushuang would have to go all out to suppress the godly spirit. One godly spirit was already so powerful, but there were 5 of them in 5-fire godly spirit mirror. Plus, when the 5 godly spirits attacked all together, they could form 5-fire formation. Then, the fighting power that the 5 godly spirits put to play would be even stronger. In terms of power alone, I am far from a great emperor's match. However, with 5-fire godly spirit mirrors, I can be fearless when I run into an ordinary great emperor. Jian Wushuang smiled. With 5-fire godly spirit mirror to hand, Jian Wushuang had an extra trump card. Plus, the trump card was pretty fierce. Jian Wushuang was still filled with excitement. But suddenly, Palace Master, Hall Master Yuan sent a message. Hall Master Yuan, what's the matter? Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. Lineage of Star was just like Green Fire World then. They were both flourishing with prosperity. He had never been worried when he passed Lineage of Star to Hall Master Yuan. There's something, a major thing. Hall Master Yuan briefly shared the news about the brand new ancient battlefield. At first, Jian Wushuang could keep his cool. However, the moment he heard about the brand new ancient battlefield, his face changed. At the very end, his face grew grave. He was extremely upset. You are saying the brand new ancient battlefield is connected through a hidden space gap in ancient Mysteryland? Jian Wushuang asked in a deep voice. Yes. Hallmaster Yuan nodded. Jian Wushuang quivered in fear. An ancient battlefield reachable through space gap. No doubt they were talking about the ancient battlefield in Greenfire World. Hallmaster Yuan, how did you get the news? Do you know who else knows about the news? Jian Wushuang asked closely. The news spread like wildfire. The entire Sanctuary Alliance, all forces, sects in eternal chaotic world, including many solo experts already know the news. On top of that, a large number of experts have already rushed over to the ancient battlefield. In fact, Lineage of Star received the news relatively late, Hallmaster Yuan said. It has spread around? Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. Palace Master, the guest elders and Lineage of Star intend to explore the brand new ancient battlefield as well. What do you? Hallmaster Yuan had yet to finish his sentence. Tell them not to head over to the ancient battlefield. Jian Wushuang roared directly. Why? Hallmaster Yuan creased his eyebrows. Don't ask why, just follow my instructions. It was inconvenient for Jian Wushuang to say too much. After some thinking, Jian Wushuang said again, Hallmaster Yuan, tell the guest elders to get ready. I'll send his show back to Lineage of Star and have him bring them to a place. Where? Hallmaster Yuan couldn't help but ask. They'll know when they arrive. On top of that, let his show bring along those Dao soldiers. Just leave a few of them behind to ensure there is nothing wrong with Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang said. Okay, I understand. Hallmaster Yuan nodded but didn't ask further. After communicating with Jian Wushuang, Hallmaster Yuan's gaze quickly redirected to the guest elders. Everyone, Palace Master has commanded all of you to not step foot in the ancient battlefield, Hallmaster Yuan announced. What? The guest elders, who were originally enthusiastic and excited, became distressed and immediately burst into an uproar. They questioned Hallmaster Yuan as to why this had happened. Hallmaster Yuan replied in a deep voice. Palace Master didn't explain the actual reason, but as Palace Master said so, he must have his meaning. Everyone only has to follow his instructions. The guest elders were unhappy, but they didn't argue. However, they were only guest elders of Lineage of Star, and Lineage of Star couldn't really restrict them. Although they didn't say much, it was uncertain if they would follow Jian Wushuang's instructions. Wushuang City in the secret room. Jian Wushuang sat there, but then his face grew grave. Damn it! Jian Wushuang roared, and he couldn't help but clench his right hand into a fist to punch the ground, although he didn't use his divine power in that punch. Merely his strength of divine body caused a huge pit on the ground. The entire secret room almost collapsed. What I worried about the most finally happened, Jian Wushuang muttered. What did he worry about the most? No doubt it was Greenfire World being exposed to the outsiders. One should know that the battlefield that Greenfire World was located on was a great opportunity and treasure. Greenfire World was at the core of the battlefield, and it was nurtured from the battlefield. On top of that, the ancient battlefield had started to transform over recent years. Just how great was Greenfire World's value? When Emperor God Xianxia found out about Greenfire World, he immediately wanted to conquer it and charged there straight away. It was because Emperor God Xianxia didn't know the value of Greenfire World and the ancient battlefield entirely yet. If he were to really know, he believed that even a great emperor would absolutely go crazy as well. Over the years, he had been extremely cautious and worked hard to grow Greenfire World with his all. He himself had been trying hard to cultivate and increase his power. That was because he knew that the secret of Greenfire World would be exposed one day. He hoped that he could be standing on the peak of the universe before the secret was exposed. Then, he would be able to protect Greenfire World so that all forces wouldn't dare to lay a finger on it. But then, although he was extremely close to that step, he was slightly off after all. At such a crucial moment, the secret of Greenfire World exposed. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang moved and left the secret room. At the same time, he sent messages to all higher-ups in Greenfire World, Jian Nantian, Wang Yuan, Su Rou, Palace Master Yun, and so on, to call for a discussion. Very soon, all higher-ups in Greenfire World, including the rulers of the 9 top forces, had gathered together. Jian Wushuang sat in front of these people. Father, how did the probing of the surrounding battlefield by Greenfire World go? Jian Wushuang asked. It's not bad, Jian Nantian reported. As Greenfire World continues to grow, there are more and more experts who wander in the surrounding battlefield. In terms of newly found special places, there are more than a dozen types of them. Among the special places, there are many that still have yet to be explored in depth. You know that Greenfire World is located on a huge skull and right in between the eyebrows of the skull. Over the years, the experts from Greenfire World explored more than half the skull and they drew a detailed star map. As for the places outside the skull, we have yet to venture in as it is too far away. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly, then he said solemnly, Send down my command. Tell all experts who are wandering in the ancient battlefield to return to Greenfire World. On top of that, prohibit anyone from wandering in the ancient battlefield. The moment Jian Wushuang's command was sent down, the surrounding higher-ups of Greenfire World looked shocked. Greenfire World was prospering and the surrounding ancient battlefield was a great training ground. At such a crucial moment, Jian Wushuang had suddenly sent down a command to prohibit everyone from entering ancient battlefield. The reason behind it, unless... Jian Nanshan's gaze froze as he figured one possibility. You guessed it right. The experts from Eternal Chaotic World has already descended. Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. Everyone looked terrified when they heard that. In the vast ancient battlefield, there were boundless opportunities. Right at the space gap, where it connected to ancient Mysteryland, Virum, there was a sudden flash of light in the hidden space gap. Then there were 3 shadows that leaped out. The 3 of them were almighties and they came of the same force. The 3 of them looked around after it appeared. This is the brand new ancient battlefield? It seems that we should be the earliest to reach here. As the 3 of them were chatting, the space gap behind them had another flash of light again. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. There were a few figures that leapt out of the space gap one after another. They are from Divine King Island. The one leading is number 1 Divine King. The 3 of them immediately recognized the incomer. However, it was merely the beginning. There were continuous figures that constantly leapt out from the space gap. After a short while, there were already dozens of people who had arrived at the ancient battlefield. They were merely the first batch of experts to arrive in the ancient battlefield. After them, there were many people who swarmed in. The experts who came to the ancient battlefield felt the unusual environment on the ancient battlefield at the first instant. The spiritual influence of heaven and earth is so intense. It's too intense. It's more intense than 10 cultivation sanctuaries by a dozen times. How could it be so intense? They are both ancient battlefield, but the spiritual influence of heaven and earth in the ancient battlefield in ancient Mysteryland and here are so far apart. With such intense spiritual influence of heaven and earth, how amazing would it be to cultivate on the ancient battlefield? The other experts complimented. Then, let's go. Let's look for an opportunity. The first batch of experts didn't wait any longer but immediately dispersed to look for opportunities. Then, the second batch, the third batch, and many other experts descended. They wandered in the ancient battlefield and started their search. All experts descended. The ancient battlefield, that had been silent for God knows how many years, finally became bustling. There's no doubt that the ancient battlefield was covered with opportunity and treasure. Previously, no one had searched for them. Previously, Greenfire World had been too weak and they didn't even have one universe god. Hence, even though they were in the ancient battlefield for so many years, they were not capable enough to obtain the opportunities in the ancient battlefield. Then, Jian Wushuang had suddenly risen and searched for a while. However, he was alone after all. With his effort alone, even if he was given tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, he wouldn't be able to search through too much of an area. Similarly, he wouldn't be able to find too many opportunities. But then all experts had descended. All almighties in eternal chaotic world were going to search and wander in the ancient battlefield altogether. The probability of finding an opportunity would naturally be far bigger. As they searched, the opportunities would be unearthed one by one. As the experts descended on the battlefield, the cave dwelling left behind by an expert in ancient times were found in 1 month. The cave dwelling left by an expert in ancient times, if it were to be in ancient Mysteryland, they might not even find one in hundreds of thousands of years. However, on the brand new ancient battlefield, it only took 1 month for the first cave dwelling left by an expert in ancient times to come to light. The cave dwelling was filled with opportunities that many Sir Gods and Emperor Gods would be crazy about. In such a situation, there was naturally a fight. During the fight, there were experts who passed away. Besides, whatever that happened in the ancient battlefield naturally spread to eternal chaotic world. In eternal chaotic world, there were many forces, sects and solo experts who had received news of the birth of the brand new ancient battlefield earlier. However, just in case, many forces had only sent a few experts to explore and check on the situation. For instance, Soaring Heaven King Palace had only sent Emperor God Tianling alone. But then, after a month's time, there was news about another discovery from the ancient battlefield. It was obvious that the ancient battlefield contained great opportunities. Hence, the experts who had held back previously and those experts who had been contemplating previously, they didn't hesitate anymore and swarmed into the ancient battlefield. Even the old folks who cultivated in seclusion all year round slowly revealed themselves and rushed to the ancient battlefield. After a few years' time, there were more than 100 almighties who rushed to the ancient battlefield. In addition to experts from the special tribes, there were almost 1,000 of them. It could be said that more than half of the almighties in eternal chaotic world had arrived at the battlefield. It was a feast, an unprecedented feast. As the almighties searched madly, the time flew past. In the blink of an eye, 90 years had passed. 90 years were nothing to many almighties. If in ancient Mysteryland, unless one was extremely lucky, otherwise 90 years of exploration would come to nothing. However, on the brand new battlefield, there were boundless opportunities in a short 90-year span. Forget about the others. In terms of cave swelling left behind by experts in ancient times, there were 4 in the 90-year span. In the 4 cave dwellings, they contained boundless opportunities. However, the threshold to receive the opportunities were extremely high. The almighties in eternal chaotic world wandered for 90 years on ancient battlefield and gained more or less. Some who were lucky gained a bountiful harvest that made people green with envy. But even so, the places that the experts searched through were merely a small part of the entire ancient battlefield. In the void above the ancient battlefield, there were 2 Sir Gods flying side by side, and they spread their soul power. But just then, the 2 Sir Gods were surprised. They sensed a huge object in front of them with their soul power. What's that? Judging from the looks of it, it seems to be a big world. The 2 Sir Gods exchanged a look and they looked astonished. The space gap that connected ancient Mysteryland wasn't too far away from Greenfire World. Emperor God Xianxia had only came across Greenfire World after 12,000 years. Then, it had only been 90 years since the experts descended, but there were too many experts who were wandering in the battlefield. Hence, the probability of them finding Greenfire World was naturally much greater. Then, the 2 Sir Gods came before Greenfire World. Big world? On this ancient battlefield, there's a big world? How is it possible? Could there be cultivators on this ancient battlefield? The 2 Sir Gods were terrified. What do you think? Do you want to head in to take a look? A woman in green armor suggested. The ancient battlefield is so unique. After just 90 years, there are countless opportunities that have appeared, even cave dwellings left behind by experts in ancient times. There are as many as 4. Until now, I didn't hear anyone who said that they had found a big world. As we found it, we should, of course, take a look. The other brawny young man replied. The 2 of them made up their minds and immediately flew to Greenfire World. However, before they got close to Greenfire World, swoosh, 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 there were a few figures that flew out from Greenfire World and appeared before 2 Sir Gods. They were led by Jian Nantian and Wang Yuan. Green Fire World was located under the formation. Anyone who wanted to enter Green Fire World had to get permission from Green Fire Palace. Through the formation, Green Fire Palace also noticed the two Sir Gods approaching ahead of time. Stop! Xianxia stared at the two people in front of him with a cold face. There are really cultivators? The brawny young man and the woman in green armor were shocked. Xianxia continued to say, Green Fire World doesn't like to deal with outsiders. Please leave now. Green Fire World? The two Sir Gods were surprised, but the brawny young man immediately flashed an ingratiating smile. We don't have bad intentions. We only want to rest in Green Fire World. I hope you don't mind us. No way. Leave this instant. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude, Xianxia said in a deep voice. Rude? The brawny young man sneered. Only a few real gods. What can you do? A few real gods have guts to block our way. You are courting death. The woman in green armor looked cold. Don't waste time with them. Let's barge in. All right? The brawny young man nodded heavily. They could tell that Green Fire World was unusual. However, a few real gods wanted them to back off. It was obviously not happening. Swoosh! Swoosh! The two Sir Gods took action straight away. Xianxia, Wang Yuan and the others were shocked at the sight. But just then, as you don't want to leave, you may stay forever. There was suddenly a cold roar that resounded in the air. The voice contained boundless might and soaring murderous intention. The two Sir Gods who were originally plunging at full speed suddenly stopped in the void. Whose voice is this? The two Sir Gods creased their eyebrows. Suddenly, Birum! There was an intense purple light that soared up and instantly covered the entire region. A purple formation rose in the air from nowhere. The brawny young man and woman in green armor could feel the tenacity of the purple formation. The formation gave them an indestructible feeling. Then swoosh, 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 swoosh. Four resplendent golden lights suddenly burst out from afar. The four golden lights were too fast. So fast that they were beyond the two Sir Gods' imagination. Shit! The two Sir Gods' faces changed when they saw the golden lights. They felt an intense danger soaring up from the bottom of their hearts. Very soon, the four resplendent golden lights appeared in front of him. They were four strange-looking golden swords. The golden swords! The brawny young man stared. He was also good with sword principle. Hence, he knew extremely well about the experts who were good with swords in Eternal Chaotic World. He also knew about the Golden Sword. Sword Emperor! It's Sword Emperor's golden sword! The brawny young man bellowed. What? The woman in green armor next to him stared. Sword Emperor? The infamous Sword Emperor? His golden swords were there? On top of that, the purple formation around them reminded them of one realm pearl that Jian Wushuang once used. The method where ones will formed a formation. Suddenly, they found out who the person who had taken action against them was. No! The two Sir Gods looked terrified. They wanted to resist and counter-attack with their all. However, they were trapped while Jian Wushuang's four Hong Jun golden sword possessed the power of a peak emperor god each. They burst out, and the two Sir Gods didn't even stand a chance to struggle. They were instantly killed. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang appeared in the void from nowhere and stood next to the two Sir Gods' dead bodies. Behind him, Xianxia and the others came closer as well. It has been 90 years since the experts descended, and there are people here already? Jian Wushuang muttered. He knew that all experts had already descended and Green Fire World would definitely be found. It was only a matter of time. However, it had only been 90 years and the first batch of experts had come. It was only two Sir Gods and I can easily kill them. They didn't even have time to send out messages. However, if it were to be two Emperor Gods next or even more powerful experts, I wouldn't have any other way. I can only do what I can do. I can only fight for more time for Green Fire World and also for myself. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. He was at the brink of a breakthrough. Before the forces and experts in Eternal Chaotic World find out about Green Fire World, he would fight for however much time he could. because every extra year he got, or even an extra day, he would stand a higher chance to break through. After he had retrieved the two Sir God's treasure and shattered their dead bodies, Jian Wushuang had returned to Greenfire World to cultivate in seclusion. However, he didn't know that there was a young man with crimson hair in a crimson robe was hiding in the nearby void. The young man with crimson hair in a crimson robe was naturally Sir God Xuedao. Two top Sir Gods couldn't even send any message out but were killed by Sword Emperors. Such a nuisance. Wasted my effort to lead them to Greenfire World. Sir God Xuedao muttered as chilliness filled his eyes. Although he had stayed back in the void, he could see everything that had happened around Greenfire World. Jian Wushuang is so powerful. Even when an ordinary Almighty found Greenfire World, I reckon he would immediately kill the Almighty before the Almighty could expose the news to the public. It looks like I have to instigate this personally. Even if I have to expose myself and be in danger, it will be worth it to get Sword Emperor targeted by all forces. Sir God Xuedao smirked coldly and took out a token. He sent a message to an expert that he knew. Emperor God Shiryu, I have a favor to ask.